some exciting news to share. We are back for Season 2 of my podcast, Let's Be Real with Sammy J. This season, we'll have more revealing and unfiltered conversations with celebrities, influencers, activists, and athletes. Guests include the amazing singer and actor Anthony Ramos, TikTok sensation Dixie D'Amelio, NBA star Aaron Gordon, and many more. Listen to Let's Be Real with Sammy J on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? And maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well then, let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. We are celebrating our magic in the middle of life's messes. Don't miss our first episode on November 30th. Listen to the Hot Happy Mess podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Hurt Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Hurt at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Hurt.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
The one young pitcher that you kept hearing about years and years ago was Walker Buehler. He's now been a Dodger for several years, but now the nation's finally catching up to him. He has had minimum 5 starts, the highest strikeout ratio in the history of playoff baseball. That counts like Babe Ruth and stuff. He can throw really hard. He is one of the great young Dodgers in that 25, 26, 27-year-old range. He was also great at Vanderbilt a few years ago, won a championship there. I remember watching that on TV, and Walker Buehler of the world champion Dodgers now joining us live, the All-Star. So it's interesting. They always talk about analytics, and I like analytics. But I always say I also like manalytics, which is in big postseason games, I'm not going to walk up to Blake Snell or Walker Buehler and say, yeah, my data book says I've got to get rid of you. Were you even a little surprised? Because Blake, everybody knows Blake is just a monster, throws filthy stuff. Were you surprised Tampa took him out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a little bit of surprise. You know, the guy was rolling pretty good, and our offense was having kind of a tough time with him there for a while. And, you know, it is what it is. You know, they thought that was the best decision for their team, and that's fine. And, you know, whoever they brought in after that, we got lucky and scored some runs and won the game. So, obviously he's a fun guy to watch, but we weren't too upset that he got out of there.
By the way, Walker, if you were rolling, and the 6th inning Dave Roberts came out, and you gave up a double, and he said, young man, you got to go. Have you ever pushed back at least and said, no, I feel good. I hit it off the hands. Have you ever argued with a manager who comes up and says, I got to take you out?
Yeah, I for sure have. I think maybe to a fault a little bit at times, but, you know, I think we're all competitive, and you probably wouldn't be there without that. So, no, you want to stay in every game and throw as long as you can, but, you know, at the end of the day, the organization usually has your best interests in mind and the best interests of the team, but yeah, you definitely can get a little angry when they try and take the ball from you.
You guys have been a really good team for years. 7 straight division titles, I think. But Mookie Betts, it wasn't like you couldn't get to a World Series without him. It's not like you couldn't win a division without him. But when they brought Mookie over, when was the first game or two that you saw Mookie Betts and went, okay, this is like he is juice. He is juice. I mean, like, when did it really pop for you that, wow, he just adds something we don't have?
Yeah, you know, he's a guy obviously we had some familiarity with playing Boston in the World Series a couple years ago, and you know, he's just a special baseball player. I think the biggest thing for us, or the first thing I can kind of remember, was we played in Arizona and early in the year, and there was a ball kind of in the corner like the one he just hit on there, and he caught it, threw the guy out at third, and we're like, oh, like this is kind of different, you know. But we had Cody make his MVP run and made a lot of plays like that last year, so to watch those two guys now, you know, last year was Cody and this year was Mookie that was doing stuff every day that we just didn't really comprehend at the time, but we're glad to have him on our side.
Listen, when you were coming up in the Dodgers organization, you, I'm sure, watched Clayton Kershaw, who is really this generation's Sandy Koufax. And he's just a classy guy, kind of a team leader. when they won the other night and you watch Clayton Kershaw and he pointed to the sky, I mean, we were on the set here, it's emotional. I mean, was there a sense for you, Walker, that you were not just pitching for the Dodgers, you were pitching for Clayton? The organization felt like we got to win this thing. Like, we've got one of the great players in league history. Did you sense that at all?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is obviously whatever's been written and said about him in the playoffs. Kershaw's been unbelievable in this game for a long time. So, I think it's hard to sit there and watch a guy put in the time and effort like we all know he does, and then people kind of say things like that about him all the time. And he was unbelievable for us, has been for a long time, but especially in this playoffs. So, we're definitely thrilled that he was a huge part of this, and to kind of get it done for him. Yeah, you can see it there. But no, it was a really cool deal for us.
It's so interesting to watch all you professional athletes, and you're playing in no fans, and it thinks to I'm like, oh my God, the Dodgers finally win it, and the Dodger fans aren't there. Is it easier to pitch because no fans, no distraction? You didn't have to travel every third night, get on a plane. I could make an argument if I'm a pitcher. I love the idea of waking up in the same city every night and not having to travel. Were there any advantages to playing at the same place?
Yeah, I think we were pretty fortunate to start in Dallas and stay there the whole time. I think we did a good job of making that place kind of our home for a little while, and that's all well and good. But at the same time, we had 11,000 fans during the playoffs, so that was the biggest games of the year. It was the first time you saw a fan in the stands, which was kind of different, but it was nice. I think you could feel kind of a little bit more energy and things like that we hadn't had all year. So we enjoyed that new ballpark, but we're glad to be done there and bring the trophy home and start playing at our place again.
It's a very young baseball team. There's no reason this team can't win for 7 years. But when you win championships, Walker Buehler joining us, it's very common that, you win a championship, you don't quite have that push, that drive. How do the Dodgers maintain the edge now that you've won the ring, now that you are champs, now everywhere you go in town, everybody knows who Walker Buehler and Corey Seager, is that a little bit of a challenge?
I think normally, I think that is an understandable thing. Obviously, you go through a season and then you play longer than anyone, so your off season is shorter than everyone else except for one other team, right? But, I think for us doing it in a season like we did, where it's 60 games, I don't think was quite as taxing as maybe 162 games would be. Obviously, this playoff stuff is about as tough as it gets regardless of how many games you play, just mentally more than anything. But, I think all of us want to keep winning and we want to keep doing well. So, I'm not too worried about it. Also, I think the thing that people don't talk about is there's a lot of guys that are with us that weren't on a roster that are going to make an impact for us next year that want to be in it in a different way. So, I think everybody's going to take a little while and kind of take a breather, but then get back at it.
Hey, listen, I know this is a tough question for you, but Justin Turner's a great player. Everybody loves Justin. He kind of defines the whole Dodger thing. You find out COVID, he comes on the field, there's not a mask, people freak out, people are angry at him. Is there any clarity here? Are Dodger players upset with him? Where does that stand today?
No, I think obviously this stuff's kind of above my pay grade. We're just out there to try and win, but we saw him come off the field. You kind of hear what happens, and he's been such a big part of our culture and our team for so long. I think it's hard to say, you can't come out on the field and take a picture with the trophy with his wife and his teammates and things like that. So, I know he's symptom free and feeling good, and I think that's the biggest, most important thing. And we're all through the country kind of dealing with this thing, and it just so happens that it happened to us during Game 6 of the World Series, but we held up the trophy, and we'll deal with the rest after that.
By the way, like a pitcher, when you throw all the innings you do, this is kind of a dorky sports guy question. Do you not pick up a baseball for 2 months? Like, how much your arm, when you go for a long run in the postseason, I know it was a shorter season, but will you just not pick up a baseball for 5 weeks?
Typically I take about a month off. I think this year I'll probably take a little bit less just because I'm traditionally kind of a slow starter, so kind of give myself a little more time. But yeah, I think most guys it's 2 weeks to a month, and I've kind of abused that month in the past, but we'll probably shorten it up a little bit this year.
Could not be happier for you. An amazing organization. They build it the right way, folks. It's farm system. They're patient. They develop their stars. They dabble in free agency, but it's built the right way. Walker, you're going to have already an amazing career. Congrats. Happy for you. And go get another ring. Thanks, man.
This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, actor Matthew McConaughey. Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company. I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these. He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it?
No.
We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
Why is Future Doctor?
Are you serious?
I'm just asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I have a friend who did that. Trace Gallagher's my buddy at Fox News, and I've known Trace for 30 years, and he kept a journal and still does, and I've always been jealous of him.
I try to keep a journal, yeah, but you have to be very disciplined.
Well, of course you do, yes. And Trace is, and I'm not. And in some ways I am. You know, I eat right and I work out. Matthew McConaughey, Academy Award-winning actor, is now joining us live. It's called Green Lights, by the way. So I will tell you right now, of all the things I'm jealous of, it's not the Academy Award and all that stuff. It's that you had the discipline to write a journal, and it's not a typical journal. It's not sad, although there's moments, so far of what I've seen, you talk about happiness. So, and it's not an advice book. This is not what it is. Give people a sense of what this memoir is about, because it took a lot of discipline, and I love the way you attacked it to write about it.
Well, it's a lot about attack. It's about approach, really, to life. My personal approaches that I think everybody can understand in their own lives. You know, green lights, we love green lights in life. They say yes, they're freedom. They affirm our way. They say go, attaboy, more please, continue. We don't like yellow and red lights in life. They slow us down or make us stop. And though we don't like red and yellow lights, I've found that a lot of my red and yellow lights in life, those hardships and crises, actually gave me what I needed, or later on revealed their green light assets of lessons I learned from those hard times. So, we can engineer our own green lights in life by choices we make today through responsibility and accountability and delayed gratification. Also, sometimes green lights just land in our lap with good fortune. So what do we do with them when they do? And then other times, it's just about perspective. I can look at a situation differently than you. I may see it as a red light. You may see it as a green light. It's how do we see it? Sometimes a red light crisis doesn't exist if we just don't even give the damn thing credit. So, eventually in the rearview mirror, I do believe that all red and yellow lights do turn green. It's an approach book.
You know, it's interesting because in Hollywood, you are rare. You are not cynical. You don't lean all the way left. You're kind of relatable. You love your sports. Your dad was drafted by the Packers. You're kind of a regular guy. In fact, years ago, I had a friend that got on a Delta flight with you you were flying to Austin. He goes, "You won't believe who was on my flight tonight." I said, "Who?" He sat next to me, Matthew McConaughey. I said, "Really?" He said, "Oh, he's a talkative, nice guy. He didn't try to hide. It was a late night flight." Right. And that, by the way, and he spoke very highly of you. And it is interesting. You mentioned recently that you feel sometimes you get pushback, and It's funny because you've really embraced who you are, your sports, your love for Texas, and that's sometimes you feel like an outsider, but yet you're very much an insider. And as I'm kind of rambling here, have you ever sensed that a little bit? You're in the club, but kind of out of the club.
Yeah, maybe somewhat. But you know what? Every time I feel like I'm out of the club, I got to be honest with you, Colin. Every time I feel like maybe I'm a little bit out of the club, when I go back there, that community and my peers embrace me wholeheartedly. I mean, the one great thing about Hollywood is that you can go out there and be whoever you want to be. The really tough thing about Hollywood is you can go out there and be whoever the hell you want to be, and too many options can make tyrants of anybody. But that whole industry has overall been great to me. And you know, I have a lot of good friends out there. I've met some of the most creative and extraordinary people in my life out there. Now that comes with, you know, some people that have extremely views on to one side or the other that do not agree. I think what I said the other day that you were alluding to when I've talked about my faith, you know, I've seen people, everyone's just out there, there's a game to play. There's a game in Hollywood. Do we do our business in the Hollywood game? I've tried to do my business in the Hollywood game. I've also tried to play my own game in the business of Hollywood. But overall, that industry's been very kind and embracing of me, even though, you know, I know not everyone agrees with some of the things that I believe in. I've kept a pretty doggone good relationship with them, and they have with me.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about this, the movies you've done. I loved Contact with Jodie Foster. Loved it. Oh, God, I loved it. And I have seen a UFO, although I still don't believe in them, but I saw one. Not going to get into it. You know, whatever.
Another show? Okay.
Yeah, no, but I Grayland, Washington, I've talked about it ad nauseum. Okay, Wedding Planner, Lincoln Lawyer. You loved Lincoln Lawyer, by the way. Dallas Buyers Club, Wolf of Wall Street, Interstellar, which is my daughter's favorite movie. But here's what's interesting. So it's very easy now as an actor to do Netflix and Amazon Prime. It's very easy now because it's lucrative and it's very good. But you had just won the Academy Award 6-7 years ago. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go do True Detective. It wasn't as fashionable then. It was like, whoa. Movie stars don't do that. No. That's what you do. Did your agent...
They don't go to the small screen.
That's right. And I thought, did your agent go, hey, Matthew, I want you to take the weekend off, go fly fishing, come back, think about it. Because people 7 years ago, Matthew, they were not doing that.
No, they weren't. You bring up a really good point. So, at that time, look, I was rolling. I was doing creative work back to back, and I was ferocious about it. And I was consistent. I was choosing character and story. F the bucks. I don't care. I'm going for the experience. I want to choose a role that's going to make me sweat in my boots in a story that I'm like, can't wait to turn the page. And that's what Rustin Cole and True Detective offered. So I remember considering exactly what you just said. Now, wait a minute. No one's, you know, I loved the script. My agent loved the script. But we said, this is moving to the small screen. And you're succeeding on the big screen at the highest level. That's not what actors do. You're exactly right. But I remember saying, well, the story's there. The character's there. I don't give a damn what screen it's on. And my agent, we talked about it for about 8 seconds. So there was no weekend of fly fishing. I needed no reset. He agreed. I agreed. We plowed forward. And, you know, that show that we did, that Nick Pizzolatto created, Carrie Fukunaga directed, myself and Woody did, it was part of the beginning of the avalanche of so many actors now going to the small screen, and how you actually find your best dramas, arguably, on the small screen in limited series now.
The other thing that's fascinating, Matthew McConaughey is joining us, is Dallas Buyers Club is a remarkable performance. It's an absolutely incredible movie. I mean, it's one of those where you're watching it and you're like, oh, he's going to win the Oscar for this. But it's funny. I've seen De Niro put on weight. I've seen Christian Bale put on weight. And you're a guy that takes care of your body and your mind, your soul. That's who you are, okay?
Yep.
And then you made a decision, I'm going to lose like 60 pounds and be totally unhealthy. And I thought to myself, you know, everybody just thinks, oh, it's a role, you do it. But you're not your typical actor. And I remember watching that thinking, well, that's going to take him 2 years to get back to where you can't just eat cheeseburgers and put 50 pounds on. That's totally unhealthy.
No.
So,
you can't.
So when you made that decision, that was not just an emotional decision. It was a physical decision you made. Did you have before you made it, did you sit down and think, man, this is going to take 3 years of my life. I'm going to have to change 3 years of my life to do this movie?
No, all I initially thought was, hey, how can I lose all this weight in the most healthy fashion? Meaning, instead of trying to do it in 6 weeks, I gave myself 5 months. And I got on a diet where I was losing 2.5 pounds a week like clockwork. Forget the exercise, 2.5 pounds a week like clockwork. Got down to 134.
Oh, Lord.
Now, it was only after that I considered the way back. And I remember hearing stories and talking to a couple of doctors saying, you can't just go out and start eating your cheeseburgers and rush back because you will grow back and put on the weight in a more of a deformed way. You have to really walk the dog here. So it did take, now mind you, I came out of that, True Detective, I hung at about 165, which was a great sort of younger, sort of light fighting weight for me, and I felt really good. Then I slowly moved up to the 175 to 180. And then after that, just as I got back to my fighting weight, which is 188, I went and did this film called Gold where I got up to 221, which was a hell of a lot more fun than losing all the weight, I tell you. But maybe that's the one I haven't quite recovered from because I got these little things back here on the back right and the back left of me that kind of can hold a little water if I'm leaning back a little bit, you know?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's much easier to bang out cheeseburgers and milkshakes. That's the easy stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hanging out with your kids, doing that stuff. Matthew McConaughey is joining us. So, you have an interesting saying, and you have said, years ago I thought about writing a screenplay, and I read a book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And he says, name the film before you start writing it. Because everybody that writes a film has a great open and a great close. But those story arcs in the middle, you're going to get lost. So, go back to what the name of it is. You have an idea. You say, I want to see the movie poster.
Yes.
So explain your thinking on that.
Here we go. And it's a lot of the theme through this book.
Okay.
I have, sometimes, and I've been decent at it at times in my life, you go off the cliff and you figure out how to fly on the way down. Not me. I like to be, I call it conservative, early, liberal, late, and those are not political terms. What I mean by, what are the rules? Where are we going? What's our direction? Let's pick our general direction we're going. Let's write the headline first, then write our story to get to it. Before a film, I'll sit down with the producers and directors and go, what's the poster look like? Well, if I'm the lead and it's a silhouette of my face taking up the whole poster, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a really character-driven. The director's he wants a character-driven story here. Well, if it's a big wide shot and there's me and an army of silhouettes coming up over the mountain, well, this is going to be more of an epic story-driven picture. But what is that poster? Just to give us a little bit of a North Star to head to. Now, you write that headline. You put that goal in front of you in life, and you say, this is where I see myself. Then you write the story to get there. Then you make the movie to get there. The poster changes. The headline changes. But it's usually similar, in the similar vernacular to what you were aiming at. And that's what I mean by I want to see the poster first. I want to write the headline first sometimes and then write the story to get to the headline. And it gives me just a magic marker out there, a North Star, where we can all agree this is the album we're making. Meaning, like, if you and I go to play music, we need to at least say, are we making a rock album here, a jazz album, or a country album? You know what I mean? Let's have an idea.
Yeah. Matthew McConaughey, the memoir is called Green Lights. I just started a couple of nights ago. Many of you may not know. You know of his work, obviously. I just named many of the great movies. His dad, Jim McConaughey, was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the 1953 NFL Draft. And I think both of you, you have an appreciation for soccer, which I do. I tried to buy into an MLS team 10 years ago, and I couldn't afford it. You have bought into the Austin team, which is fantastic. Again, there's another thing I'm jealous of. You kept a journal and you bought a soccer team. Austin FC, which, by the way, I think the MLS is a growing, fledgling league. I know owners in it. It's a fantastic. I think they do a tremendous sport, tremendous job. But I want to ask you, you have athletics in your family. And when you take on roles, you can clearly be physical. Has sports, I'm sure it's helped you in your career. But is thinking like an actor and an athlete, has it ever hindered you? Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I wasn't such a jock, I wasn't such an athlete?
No. I've tried to play, use different parts of my athletic ability. I'll say this, I think about athletics all the time in the work that I do, meaning preparation. I will out-prepare people. I will out-prepare my competition and have many times. That's where the work comes in. You know this. You did your work before this show. You're not working right now. We're playing. When you're live, when you're in the game, you can play only if you've done the work. So you learn the heady stuff is early. It's like if a team gets a new defensive coordinator. And they're probably not going to be that good if the defense is that complicated the next year because they're thinking about it on the field. And if you got to think about it, you're a half a step slow and that receiver gets by you. Touchdown. Right. I don't want to be thinking on the day. I want to be working through my instincts. So I do all my work pregame so I can show up and say, I've got 4 versions of the truth in this scene. I can call an audible on the go. Don't even yell, cut. We're live. Let's go. Throw at me whatever you want. I'm in the game. I read the context. I know the time on the clock. I know what scene I'm in. I know where I am in this story. I know where I came from. I know where I'm going. Give me whatever you got. Let's play. Press record.
You are currently and will be the Minister of Culture for the Longhorns Basketball and Entertainment Facility. You're a huge Longhorn fan. I saw you on the sidelines years ago. Didn't want to bother you. USC, Texas, which remains the greatest football game I have ever seen live in my life.
Me too.
Best game I've ever seen.
One of the best dramatic events ever on planet Earth. Hollywood could not have written that script.
So I went to that game, and I said, I want a ticket. I don't want to sit in the press box. So I said, I want a ticket to the game. And I'm kind of a USC honk out here, but I always liked Texas. I was right in the middle of Texas fans. And I've said this before on the air. It was the coolest group of people. They knew they were at Ollie Frazier. Everybody sitting at that game knew, okay, this is last. I've never been to a game where Texas is like, oh, you're the last team we wanted to play. And the USC behind me is like, I don't want to face Vince Young. This is no good. And so you were a Texas fan before that, but can Texas get back there? Why can't Texas get back? Why are they not there yet?
Why are we not there yet? This is a great question. We could do a whole show on this. Look, it's many different components. I mean, look, everyone goes through cycles, and we're going through a cycle of rebuilding right now. What Tom's come in, and a lot of what he has done that we need to continue to do is this alignment of what we expect. And look, you come to Texas, you know what's expected. It's you compete for championships. That's the excellence. That's the bar. You are handed the keys to the Ferrari. Here you go. Drive it. And the players and coaches need to understand that. When you get there, that's the expectation. Now, you're going to win a championship every year? Hell no, you're not. A lot of things go into a season. Balls have to bounce your way, etc. What do we got to get back? I think this. I think we have to, and this is not just a particular problem in Texas, but I do think it is particular to Texas. We got to quit playing in the third person. We have so much media on us. We look at our proverbial jumbotron because with social media today of who are we, what do we think we are, what's expected, oh, we won, what's the pressure when we lose? No, forget it. We need to throw all that out and say, F all of that. Put it down. Let's put our head down, do the work, stick to the process, look up and be objective about what we're doing when the season's over. And if we put our head down in the process and quit thinking about, hey, how are we perceived? I think we get more wins. I think we're back to that place. Now, you have to have the right people in place to do that. I understand that. But we have the personnel. We can get the personnel. We have the players, and we can get the players. I think in Texas, part of it is we need to understand, hey, you are under the microscope here more than anywhere else in the nation. Now, do we look at that and go, oh, geez, or do we go, exactly. That's why I'm here. Now let's go. You press record, world. Watch us go. We'll look up when the season's over, and I bet you we got a whole lot more W's.
By the way, of all the stuff you've done, Green Lights, you write a memoir, and it's very personal because it's your journal. Was there any point, because this is why I'm jealous of you. Because I cry a lot. Kids, just stuff. I'm a dad. Did it take you back to places? Sometimes I look at my phone because I want to cry. I want to go look at my kids when they were 5. Did it take you back to places and you were like, oh my God, I totally forgot it. And it took you to these wonderfully emotional places.
I tell a lot of, my dad's a central character in this. And, the book is actually 2. It's in the beginning, it says this book is 2. The only thing I ever knew I wanted to be and family. And the only thing I ever knew I wanted to be was a father. And a lot of it's based on because of who my dad was to me. My father moved on in 93. and I've done a decent job of keeping his spirit alive in me and continuing conversations with him through my life and trying to share things with him spiritually. But I went back and retold some of the early stories and looked at the diaries of things I was writing as a kid when he was still alive and some times we had. And so going in and remembering some of the details of the way he loved me, the way he loved my mother, the way he loved our family, the values that he tried and instilled in us, the way where sometimes where I maybe thought it was unfair, but in retrospect looked at it and go, oh no, he was really trying. You go back, and we lose a loved one, our father, and you see that there's a gap between the message and the messenger.
Right.
And you go, and I remember being angry about that gap and going, wait a minute, you didn't really do that? But that's what you taught me. And then I noticed through the diaries that, then I forgave him for that. And then I also said, well, just because maybe the messenger didn't act out on the messages he was giving you, Matthew, doesn't mean that the message wasn't good. So you can still double down that he wanted you to be a little bit better, a little more evolved, a little bit better of a man, and maybe even a better father. So when I went back in those places, I shed quite a few tears seeing my dad, how he loved me, my brothers, our family, and his wife, my mother, and saw how it was hard sometimes, and saw where maybe he didn't live up to what he was teaching, but he damn sure meant it, and I appreciated it in a different way when I went back and looked at it.
By the way, I have to ask you about this because my daughter Olivia watched Interstellar about a month ago, and she told me it's the best movie she's ever seen, and I said, Olivia, it's very complicated. And during the break before I had you on, I told you, and what did you say about how complicated it was?
I said, here, I'm going to give you my number. Olivia, call me so you can explain it to me.
It is a very complex movie. She literally talked to me. She called me 4 times about it. She said, Dad, you just can't believe this thing. It's so great. And I'm like, okay, I'll get to it. I've watched like 7 of his movies. Just give me time on Interstellar. Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure. The memoir is called Green Lights. I hope to see you at a Texas football game because I love the program. I love what it stands for, and I'm really rooting for Tom Herman. You're a busy, busy man. Put that book up one more time. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Colin, thank you. Look forward to seeing you next time in person. Hook 'em this Saturday.
This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, Emmanuel Acho. Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Personal growth is challenging, but it doesn't have to be hard. When we lean into self-inquiry and self-discovery, we're able to love all the tiny little parts of us, even the pieces we don't want other people to know about. And that's what it's really about, right? Self-love, self-acceptance, self-discovery, excavation, expansion. We are the powerful co-creators of our lives. All we need are the tools to get there. I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect. And I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. A new season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
3 NFL seasons. Brother played as well. He was a first-team All-Big 12 linebacker at Texas. The book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel Acho. And so I watched your conversations with Roger Goodell and Matthew McConaughey. And we were saying something during the break. I think John Lewis, the late John Lewis said this. It's a great line, and I've thought about this before. In life, it's not what you say, it's how it's heard.
Exactly.
And so when I watched your conversations, it wasn't what you always said, but as a white 55-year-old guy, it was how it landed for me. You weren't judgmental. I don't know if you wanted it to land that way, but I thought, oh, this stuff lands right. He's not preaching. He's not lecturing. He's telling me, hey, man, this is the way. And so that my first thing is a compliment into you have a way of making stuff land that is uncomfortable, yet I was never uncomfortable listening to it. That was the irony. It's like, oh, this is really, I'm a curious guy. So when you wrote the book, did you think you'd get, it's been wholly embraced.
Yeah.
Did you think you'd get pushback?
You're always cognizant of potentially getting pushback, and that's why I'm very cognizant of every word I say and putting the right emphasis on the right syllable, right? Because you have to know exactly what you're saying and how you're saying it. You've said, and this is the second time I've heard it, Oprah actually, Colin, was the first person to say it, saying that I have a way of delivering hard information, but it doesn't come off as hard.
Softly.
I don't really know how I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just trying to deliver truth with grace and with love, because I think that's what we need more of in this world is hard truths, but they have to be embodied and packaged with grace. Otherwise, they're too harsh for somebody to receive.
You've used the line, guilt doesn't cause somebody to change, love does. So I tell my liberal friends this. Your messaging's bad. You're being condescending. You can get along with conservatives. Don't always tell us how smart you are. So in your book, you never come across as preachy. It's like, listen, I'm going to tell you my life experience, and I want to talk about Oprah, because people often ask me in my life, who's your role model? And I've said Oprah. And they're like, not sports guys. I'm like, no, Howard Stern and Oprah own their own brands. That's the goal.
Yeah.
They control it. Is Oprah obviously smart, but after talking to Oprah, what's your takeaway on her vision and her?
It's funny because we did a Zoom call for an hour, maybe it was 2 days ago, and the thing that sticks out with me most is the first question she asked me. I hop on a FaceTime after the first episode I did, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. It gets 25 million views in 4 days, and I get a call from Oprah's assistant. She says, hey, Oprah wants to talk to you. The first question Oprah asked me, Colin, what is your intention? She said, what's your intention? Because your intention, it guides your direction.
Right.
And so when she asked me what my intention was, I said my intention is to change the world, be a bridge for racial reconciliation, and I think I can do that. The biggest thing when I talk to Oprah, which guides my direction of all my conversations, is, Emmanuel, what's your intention? And stay true to your intention. Don't worry about clicks, don't worry about likes, don't worry about follows, don't worry about shares. Stay true to your intention and stay true to the messaging. I think that's what she does best.
Yes.
And that's what I borrow most from her.
Are you hopeful?
That's a great question. Colin, I got an email from a 70-year-old woman named Lynn. It was after the first episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. She's a white woman, grew up in rural Alabama in the 1940s or 50s. She said, Emmanuel, I grew up, I didn't go to school with any quote-unquote Negroes. I grew up in rural Alabama, and I was very prejudiced, she says, in so many words. She said, but after watching your episode, I realized I can still change. Please don't give up on me yet. I love you, my son, and my brother. Almost brought tears to my eyes, but it's nearly impossible not to be hopeful when you see something like that. What I realized, Colin, is there's great intentions. So black people and white people, we want to get along, but there's a fracture on how. There's a communication barrier, Colin. There's a communication, color, and culture disconnect.
Yeah.
And that's the real problem at hand.
Culture's fascinating because when I was growing up, there wasn't a black middle class. I think Bill Clinton's presidency was the first time I remember reading about a black middle class because of some legislative changes. And yet your life, from what I've read, you probably feel fortunate. I feel I went through 8 divorces as a kid, but I feel fortunate, right? Because I had a loving mother and a smart father. I want to talk about culturally.
Yeah.
Are we this dissimilar? You want to be loved and loved. You want to be successful. You want to realize your dreams. How dissimilar are we? You and me, black and white, are we really that dissimilar? There are cultural realizations, right?
I would say it like this. If you were to walk into the grocery store and you were to walk down the produce aisle, you would see a bunch of fruits. And they are all fruit. So they have that in common. But they have different shapes, different sizes, different tastes, different textures. And so while at our core, we all have our humanity in common.
That's what I'm talking about. I
Yes.
understand the
At the
difference between
core.
being white and black. I want to state
But-
that. I get that. But at our core,
At our core, we're the same, but if the core is expressed differently, then we can never get to the core. You know what I mean? Like, Colin, that's part of the problem, is if we can never get to the core because of the exterior, the psychological differences, then we'll never get to the shared humanity.
so when I ask that, I sound like a stupid old guy when I say, what are our differences? What I'm talking about is today, 2020, November, what is the day? 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I've always had this theory is that people, and we know the country's past, but mostly Joy and I root for the same thing. We laugh at the same thing. We cry at the same stuff. And I think sometimes we do such a poor job, our media does a poor job, our politicians, that we're so powerful when we're unified.
Absolutely.
And we're so rarely unified.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to me. Politics makes me angry. I don't like being angry. I think you get more. I see it, and it's just not a Trump thing. It's just a political thing. Is that I think I get off my phone sometimes. I am angry at our public figures using our divisiveness because we see it. Does it frustrate you?
It does, but this is a sports show, so let's talk sports. Why aren't we unified? In a locker room, people have different races, people have different religions, people have different orientations, but they're all unified, Colin, because they have the same common enemy. Therefore, they have the same common goal. Dallas Cowboys, common enemy. Philadelphia Eagles, let's go out there and win that game. The problem in our society, Colin, is we don't all have the same common enemy. See, people think that it's black versus white, it's man versus woman, when it's really oppressed versus oppressor. It's really hate versus evil. It's really good versus evil, love versus hate. So when I think about the cause, when I think about the effect, Colin, I'm really looking at the cause. And what's the cause is we're not on the same page of what the common enemy is. So rather than you and I working together to defeat the enemy, you and I are bickering. And we can't defeat the enemy if we're bickering inside the locker room.
Yeah. I know this is heady stuff and it's not real sportsy, but it's the stuff in this book that fascinates me. It's why I'm going to read it when I fly to Vegas today.
Vegas?
Listen, I talk sports all day. I don't get smart people that don't want to talk sports. Like, so when I get somebody, this is what's it. All the questions I was supposed to ask you at the end, I just moved out. Because that's all the stuff. That's all the stuff that interests me. Nothing against the Colts Titans, okay? We can talk about that all day long.
It was kind of boring. I can't lie.
I don't get your time because we're both busy, right?
Yep.
And COVID, we can't be around each other. So this is all the stuff that interests me. This is the stuff Joy and I talk about in the makeup room. We never talk sports. We talk about life and stuff, and this stuff to me is.
Well, here's what I'll say.
I think your book makes me think about race, and I don't get defensive, and I don't get angry, and I don't think many people deliver it like you. And that's why I think it's so important. I think it's so important, your message is obviously important, but the way you deliver it is very unique, and that's why I like you, and I like your stuff, because you're striving for that. I don't want to sound like Oprah, but that's what you're striving for. A lot of people aren't honesty brokers in that space. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Because some people can't just listen to the message and not the tone. So rather than making the reader do more work, Colin, I said, let me try to package the message in a softer tone as well. And that's what I did in Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, and that's what I did in the book, along with the show, because the people are at the table, Colin, ready to be delivered a meal. I just happen to be delivering the meal. I happen to be the chef of one of the chefs towards racial reconciliation, not the only.
By the way, when you first did this, the genesis of this, the day, the moment, the epiphany, when you're like, okay, I'm going to do it and I'm going to call it this, where were you? What was the drive? You wake up, you dream about it? Like, where did this all start?
That is a question. After the murder of George Floyd, I said, man, I have to do something. I said, I'm a sports analyst, but before I'm a sports analyst, Colin, I'm a black man. But before the world even saw me as a black man, I'm a human being. So it's my job to positively contribute to society, leave the world better than when I got here. Colin, I originally was going to call it Questions White People Have. True story. I was going to call it Questions White People Have. I was going to get 3 black people at a table, 3 white people at a table. We'll sit at this round table, Colin. The white people will reach into the fishbowl, pull out a question. They will ask it. The black people will answer. But we're in the middle of COVID, so I couldn't get anybody together. And so I said, I got to change this up. I said, timing is of the essence. You know that in sports. Everything is of the essence. I said, okay, I'll change the name to Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I'll do it myself. The first episode, I was supposed to do it with a friend. She had a change of heart. So I was never supposed to do the first episode by myself. First episode, Colin, I'm in an all-white room, staring into the lens of a camera. It was supposed to be Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, not Uncomfortable Monologue with a Black Man. So why am I sitting there by myself? I never wanted to be. And that's just how it came. I say there's a difference between your career and your calling. Career is what you're paid for. Calling is what you're made for. This, I found out, is my calling. It called me. I just happened to pick up.
That's really well said. This is great. You know, sports is okay. This is way better. So the book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel. Acho, the great picture on the back. Hey, congrats on your success.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for taking time for us.
Pleasure's mine.
This is the Herd Best of. Coming up next, Justin Herbert, Terry Bradshaw, comedian Bill Burr.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold. Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Yo, this is Jeezy, urban philosopher, philanthropist, and the host of the Recession Podcast, a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. I'll bring you raw conversations about systemic racism, mental health, life on the streets, and much more. So join me on the Recession Podcast by Jeezy. That's RESESSION Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer your podcast.
This is Sammy J, and I have some exciting news to share. We are back for Season 2 of my podcast, Let's Be Real with Sammy J. This season, we'll have more revealing and unfiltered conversations with celebrities, influencers, activists, and athletes. Guests include the amazing singer and actor Anthony Ramos, TikTok sensation Dixie D'Amelio, NBA star Aaron Gordon, and many more. Listen to Let's Be Real with Sammy J on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Both of us said on Justin Herbert, we kept saying, we don't understand the critics. He got better every year. He won the academic Heisman. He was like a 4-point biology major. Everybody liked him. And then we watched the Rose Bowl, and we're like, we don't understand what is everybody? He looks like Trevor Lawrence, like big, strong kid. So he goes to the Chargers, and we're kind of waiting, Tyrod Taylor. And then one day, I turn the television on, and they say, I'm on my couch, and they're like, oh, Justin Herbert's starting. He was given a heads up 5 minutes ago, and you're like, oh, this is going to be rough. It was fantastic. Patrick Mahomes. He's been evacuated, by the way. He's down in Orange County. He's been evacuated. He's safe. He and his 2 roommates now I imagine it's in an apartment somewhere in Orange County. We got fires here in Yorba Linda in Orange County, and he is joining us, Justin Herbert. Number 6 pick, the Rose Bowl MVP. First of all, I'm glad you're safe. So, great to see you. Take me to, you're playing the Chiefs. And you're probably looking at Patrick Mahomes over there. Well, that guy's unbelievable. And then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, Justin, you're playing. Was it literally like that?
First off, thanks for having me.
You bet.
Big fan of the show, and it was like that. It honestly, we were going down the sideline. I was ready to get to cheer on the offense. I was saying, let's go, O, let's go, O. Coach Lynn comes up to me and says, Justin, you're going in. And I just didn't really know what to say at that time. And then Coach Steichen and Coach Hamilton, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, they come up to me, and I'm like, wow, this is really real. I'm going in. I just had to knock this smile off my face, and I was just so excited to get out there. And it was a really cool moment.
Yeah, like now, and what's interesting is, if I recall, I thought you sailed a ball early, but I thought you made a couple of throws up the sideline, and I was thinking to myself, oh my emotions would be coming out of my heart would come out of my uniform as you were playing in the first series or two. How did you bring it down? Because obviously, you got a big arm to begin with. That thing, you got testosterone, emotion going through you like crazy. Were you sitting there thinking, okay, don't overthrow everybody, you're highly emotional? I mean, take me to what it was like.
Oh, that's a great point. I went out there, and I was just so excited to be out there. And that first pass to Keenan Allen on the sideline, I threw that about as hard as I could have. And it was probably 5 feet over his head, but after that I kind of settled down and realized, just go out there, have fun, play your game, and good things will happen.
In Oregon, I kind of felt watching you that, listen, they didn't have a backup ready to beat you, and they were kind of playing kind of at a national championship level, so they kind of protected you a little. Then in the Rose Bowl, they were like, okay, kid, go play. So they ran you a lot. And it was interesting because some people, the criticism of you was, the offense is conservative. And I'm like, well, I watched the Rose Bowl, and he's running all over the field making Wisconsin guys miss. When people, the critics, were saying, Justin, I don't know if he has it. Did you hear the critics, TV shows? Did you hear it? Did it affect you? What did you think of it?
I think we did a great job at the University of Oregon of shutting all that extra noise out. And that was one of our biggest focuses, was just know what's going on in the building, in the program, and leave it at that. And all the people on the outside, they're not with you when you're lifting at 6 a.m. or at practice. And so we did a great job of just kind of staying in building and listening to our coaches and our teammates and kind of things like that.
You are a quarterback. I think it's in your DNA. You like to air it out. You're not a finesse. You like to air it out. Is it with Anthony Lynn in every start? There's a balance there, Justin. You've got a big-time arm. And sometimes the downside to that is you'll try to squeeze a ball into a space that, like, an average arm guy could not. Is that something you and Anthony talk about? You've got this incredible weapon, but sometimes it becomes a burden because you can make every throw.
All the time. That's one of those things that, because I feel so confident in my arm that sometimes I wait and I'm late over the middle, and it's all about those anticipation throws where, you get it out on the hitch or before the plant, and I think sometimes, I rely on my arm too much, and so that's just part of learning, and Coach Hamilton has done a great job with me of kind of talking that through, and we've worked on that a lot, so I think I've progressed a bunch, and I've still got plenty of room to grow.
So this is a real dorky question, but I'm a dorky guy, so I get one. So you were on the field with Tom Brady. I cannot imagine. You're a young guy. You play at Oregon. You're in the NFL, and about an hour later, after Mahomes, you get Tom Brady. Was there ever just a moment when you were like, I'm on a football field with Tom Brady? Like one moment of that?
Pre-game, yeah. I was out there. I was warming up, and I saw him come out on the field, and I just kind of watched him for 5 minutes, just seeing what he was doing, and got so much to learn from the guy, and he's had so much success, and I've always been a big fan of his, so it was really cool to be able to line up across him.
So, college to pro, if you were to give advice to a college quarterback, a Trevor Lawrence, a Justin Fields, a Trey Lance, on reading defenses, on the speed of the game, what are one or two, because it's obviously working for you, what are one or two pieces pieces of advice that maybe you got, maybe you didn't, that you would give to young quarterbacks about the transition college to pro?
Yeah, I would say not to overthink things. You have to go out there and you have to play relaxed, and that's where film study and all of those comes in, and being able to watch that throughout the week. But when you get to Sunday, you have to relax out there. You have to go out there and have fun, trust your instincts, and go out there and just rip the ball. And I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've been given.
I always think it's really hard to be a rookie quarterback and play. Joe Burrow similarly. That quarterback is a leadership position. Now at Oregon, you were the leader. You'd been there. You'd been accomplished. So guys would listen to you. There's constantly young players. In the NFL, you're like one of the youngest guys in the room, and yet organizations want quarterbacks to lead. Is it different or challenging to be one of the youngest guys and yet the face of a business, a face of an organization?
It's definitely tough, but I think it's a great opportunity. And kind of heading into this year, I knew that it's going to come with the position. And so being genuine, being myself, going out there and just hanging out with the guys and talking with them, I think that's a great way of getting to know them and being comfortable with them. And I know they can come to me for anything, just like I can go to them for anything. And even though I've only been here for a couple of weeks, I feel like we've got a really close locker room, and I'm just really happy to be in this spot.
The two loudest college football stadiums I've ever been in, Gainesville, Florida, the Gators, and Autzen Stadium in Oregon. It's a zoo. It's nuts. You can't hear yourself talk. Now you're playing in empty stadiums. It's gotta be weird, right?
It is a little weird, but honestly, I think it might be better. It just kind of seems like practice, and so you go out there and you got two teams playing, but it's just like practice. You go out there and you execute and you have fun, and you don't really have to worry about all the extra stuff going on around you. But I mean, it would be great with fans, but either way, we're having fun out there.
Listen, you also are in a tough spot. Tyrod Taylor's one of the most respected light guys in the league. He's a total pro. You're the young guy. You come in. That's not easy, Justin. That's a tough spot to be in. Is it okay, the relationship, and you kind of walk in? I mean, this situation, you had a veteran. He was starting. There's an incident. How's that working?
He's been an incredible teammate. He's been awesome in the locker room, and he's one of those guys that I look up to so much, and he's always there on the sideline helping out, giving advice, and even when we're watching film together, he's a great guy to have in your locker room, and one of the best guys that I've ever met.
So by the way, Joy, when Justin was a kid, Justin would get in was it your dad's car or your grandpa's car?
My grandpa's garage, actually.
And
so you just have it playing on the radio.
Yeah, his grandpa
he really listens to you?
He likes my show. Thank you very much, Mister. Yeah, that's why Justin's got a 4-point student, is all these years of wisdom.
Exactly.
Hey, you're so much fun to watch. I'm so happy for you. Everybody in Oregon is, and good luck, kid. Watching for a long time. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you.
This is the Herd Best of. Coming up next, Terry Bradshaw. Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha here, bringing you the devilish sounds and twisted treats of my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies, where I, your host, Kesha, bring you into my twisted universe, where the supernatural is, well, quite natural. Kesha and the Creepies explores supernatural subjects and alternative lifestyles with today's most exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult. You may know me from my party jams, like TikTok, We Are Who We Are, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable and mystical that drives these fascinating conversations that span non-traditional spirituality, psychedelic art, and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Personal growth is challenging, but it doesn't have to be hard. When we lean into self-inquiry and self-discovery, we're able to love all the tiny little parts of us, even the pieces we don't want other people to know about. And that's what it's really about, right? Self-love, self-acceptance, self-discovery, excavation, expansion. We are the powerful co-creators of our lives. All we need are the tools to get there. I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect. And I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. New season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I actually really like what they're doing in Carolina. I like that college guy, and I think Teddy Bridgewater's closer
nice. Played well.
He's closer to Drew Brees this morning than he is further apart. He can't throw a deep ball. Chiefs win by a touchdown, but I would take the points in Carolina. I think I like what they're doing there.
What's the points?
About 10 points.
Yeah, because the minute that I got the first pick this week, and the first choice to me was the minute I'm first pick, I saw Kansas City hosting Carolina. And
Boom.
I went, boom, that's me. It'd take me 2 seconds.
By the way, here's an interesting one for you. So the league average right now is 35 throws a game for a quarterback.
Right.
Terry Bradshaw joining us, the Hall of Famer.
Hey, folks. I'm over here adjusting my zipper.
That's okay. Well, the TV audience obviously knows. Your radio audience, Terry Bradshaw, NFL Fox. Mahomes is throwing 30, and he's better than all of them.
Wow.
So it's interesting because Kansas City is clearly saying, listen, we love him, but we don't want him going back to pass 42 times.
Right.
So you played in a different era, but you had Swan and Stallworth and Benny Cunningham.
Right.
What did you throw? How many throws a game did you throw?
You know what, Colin? Someone will have to look this up, but I think 19.
Wow.
I think for my career, 19 was my average, I think.
You were a power running team.
Right. Right.
But
we ran 65, 70%. Yeah.
But you, like Mahomes, were a home run hitter. You took some strikes down the field.
I would be a Josh Allen today. If I came out of Louisiana Tech completing 52% of my passes, maybe. I went into the NFL and retired completing 51.9%. So I was true to my form, as Josh Allen was a 56% guy at Wyoming, and he started out at 70. Now he's getting back to what he is. And they're saying he's terrible at 56%, but he is, that is, with the West Coast offense and the way the triangle offense works today, it's 65% is not uncommon if you run the West Coast offense.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about, you're from Pittsburgh, obviously not from there, but that's right. Your 4 rings. And Eric Mangini came on earlier and he goes, this is weird. The Steelers are probably the second biggest brand in the league. They're the only undefeated team.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about them.
Right.
And he's like, he goes, you got to get
it Pittsburgh? Is it because they're Pittsburgh?
Well, I don't know what it is because they're not. You know what I always like about them? They don't just draft players; they develop them. They're really good about. Terry, a lot of teams just collect talent.
Yeah.
So when you even go back to your days, we gotta give, because I've been critical of Tomlin before. Sometimes they're not buttoned up, but boy, I watch them, Terry. They have changed their defense. The Minka Fitzpatrick deal.
They just made the deal from the Jets to get that linebacker.
Avery Williamson.
Yes. Go like Bush. The other thing about the Pittsburgh drafting department or the scouting was the bunch that was fired in Detroit. Did you know that? I can't think of their name. I apologize. I just studied them the other day. I very seldom look into scouting departments, but they were fired by the Detroit Lions, and both the scout and the general manager ended up going to Pittsburgh.
I think they're
Kevin, is it Kevin?
Kevin Colbert.
Is that it, Kevin Colbert?
I think they have the best constructed roster in the NFL.
They know what they want, see? If you know what you want, and you're working in correlation with what your head coach wants and likes, and then you all three equal need, and you say, here's our needs, here's what fits the Steeler and the Tomlin mold, and then that's the player, and they don't get away from that. And you look at them year in and year out, great defense,
physical players,
great defense, yes, very physical.
It's interesting because I talked about this. I said, somebody, smart person told me years ago, he said, when you get older and you got more money and power, don't use it. You won't have to. When you have power, people know it. Don't flex. It turns people off, and it'll be avarice. It'll be ego.
That's a good point.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah.
And Belichick's obviously great. But the more Super Bowls, the more power he has in drafting. Terry, that's the slowest offense in the league. Bill has pushed people away. Sean Payton's great, but Mickey Loomis runs that draft. And I look at New England right now, Terry.
With Payton. Now, they didn't do it on his own.
That's right. But
it's not like some of these head coaches that didn't even know who they drafted. The guy in Green Bay, LaFleur.
Yeah.
He found out they drafted a quarterback in the first round over TV. Now, what does that tell you about Green Bay? What about LaFleur and what he needed to be? Do we not need a wide receiver in Green Bay? Do we not need a linebacker in Green Bay? We got rid of the one we had. So, that's to me is not the way to run a draft.
So, but my point with New England is we have this idea that, they'll rebuild and it'll be easy. My takeaway is, not that easy. By the way, Chuck Noll, when you left, didn't win as many games. I don't think New England's good offensively. I don't think they're fast. I don't think they have a quarterback. I don't think they have an answer. And I think they're going to win 4 or 5 games and not get one of the college guys. So go back. When you left Pittsburgh, the idea is with Knowles, and Chuck Noll was a legend. I'm not saying that. But boy, a good quarterback lubricates everything. Just a little easy. What were they the last 4 years? When you left the next 4 years, how did Pittsburgh do? 8, 7?
I think they did pretty good.
I think they were okay.
Mark Malone was a quarterback. I remember.
I remember.
They made the playoffs.
That's it, but they weren't winning playoff games.
Well, but they made the playoffs.
All right.
Now, Bill, look, there's a Tom Brady and a Bill Belichick thing going on in New England, and we all suspect, Tom wanted to get away, Tom wanted to win, whether Tom wanted to play, Tom wanted to prove that he was whatever. I don't know if all that's true. That's just us sitting here on television and radio just talking.
Right.
Belichick, on the other hand, he's got a bear covered, and a lot of his guys opted out because of COVID-19 not to play. There's like five really good defense, 5 really good players, most of them defense. So he has to get a quarterback, and the best one he thought was Cam Newton. I think Cam's probably going to be one and done there.
Yeah, it feels like it.
I think that's probably the way you look at it. And then they have not had to now get a quarterback. They've been able to get a Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's take a shot on Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, out of where? Eastern Illinois, wherever he went.
They've drafted 11 quarterbacks. They hit on 2.
Okay, let's try Jimmy, and no big pressure. We have Tom. Well, now there's pressure. Now that guy you draft in the second round or possibly move up in the first, he has got to hit. He has got to hit. Otherwise, you're setting your entire team goes back. It's like the Cowboys. They finally hit. Now they haven't signed. Now they lose it. You've got to hit on that quarterback. Now you build around that. Now you can build. And you can't. If I were running a team today, Colin, I would do one or 2 things. I'd build defense, or I'd build offense, and then I'd build the opposite. I'd stay with one side of the ball so I could at least be good on one side of the ball while I put the other side together.
Yeah. Getting the quarterback's not as easy as people think.
It's impossible.
12 quarterbacks have been drafted in the last 3 drafts in the first round. 4 are hits. There's questions about the other 8. So it's hard.
We are very blessed. And I think all the football fans out there, now that we have Tua, he's going to be a star.
Okay, let's see. We'll see.
He is. No, he is.
All right.
Now, they got to put things right. Kyler Murray, a guy I did not think was going. Kyler Murray is the shocker of all because he's got to sit so deep.
Yeah.
They have to. He takes his shotgun and he drops back. He's 10 yards deep so he can throw the post routes. But Mike, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's won me over. That head coach, I was listening to you earlier. That head coach is a better head coach in the NFL than he was in college.
Yeah.
It was just shocking. That
never happens.
Never happens. So you got him. Then of course Mahomes has been there. You got Allen up in Buffalo. We've got that. We've got the kid Burrows in Cincinnati. Now we got Herbert out here in
Big
Los
arm.
Angeles. I'm telling you, the NFL is blessed right now to have 7, 8 real. Jackson. Yeah. 7 or 8 really great. Wilson is still a young guy, but we've got young
players. By the way, and the older guys are playing longer, so the league's in really good hands.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sound like Grunt. I always say this. I never liked Baker out of college. I didn't like Johnny Manziel.
I don't like Baker. I don't like Baker Mayfield.
All right, you don't.
I never did like Baker Mayfield.
How come?
I don't like people like that. I'm a character guy.
Yeah.
And maybe I've never met the man. He may be the most wonderful human being in the world, but his body language and the way he acts, it's a turn off for me. That's just me. When Cam Newton came out, I didn't like Cam Newton. I don't like all that first down Superman.
Okay.
I don't like that stuff. That's me.
Okay, so I've said this. So Drew Lock, now he's got a good sense of humor because he heard I said it. So Drew Lock came out last week. Nobody even knows that he can play, and he's dancing after the touchdown. I'm like, win a few games. I didn't like Manziel in college. He was a big. I don't like. Now Aaron can get away with Aaron.
Manziel I couldn't stand either.
I didn't like him.
You can probably pick up. I don't like guys like that.
Right.
Shut your mouth up.
Okay, now watch this. This playing stuff. Now Drew Lock. Do we have the bite? Drew was funny.
Drew Lock. Now, I don't know anything about him. He's a kid from Missouri playing in Denver.
He's got a nice arm.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a baller. And he made fun of me. He's like, well, a coward can't dance. That's why he doesn't. Do we have the sound? All right. So, but the point being is, but I don't love this, and everybody calls me old grumpy guy. It tells me that you lack a little self-awareness. That's what and you're running a $4 billion franchise. I don't like it. And you don't like it either.
No, look. I don't like it because that's not the way I was raised. I was taught to have ultimate respect for the people you're competing against. Show them great respect and have great humility. Keep your mouth shut. It's hard enough to win.
Is that how your dad said?
Huh?
Your dad was into that.
Absolutely. And so that is the way I've grown up. That's the way my girls know that's the way Dad feels. You be sweet and kind to people. That doesn't mean you don't go out on the competitive environment or on the field and try to just destroy them. I'm fine with that, but be cool. Be nice.
Yeah, you were never a big fist pumper.
No. Just do your job. Just do your job. I don't get that, but I understand. Well, I'm trying to make my brand. Well, where's Manziel's brand right now? Got a job doing something, right?
Right.
And Baker Mayfield, just something about him. I don't care anything about him. Don't care anything about him. You know what? I was on Aaron Rodgers a little bit last night.
I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm just like Aaron Rodgers lost last week to Minnesota, and it was just like, oh, what the hell? Well, we're going to lose this game. But if I was trying to make a point, and I didn't write any notes, and so I went way out in left field. Jimmy Johnson said, I called Jimmy this morning. He said, where were you going with that quarterback thing? And I went, I got to be honest with you, Jimmy. I couldn't even think of a quarterback. So I brought up Burt Jones. Then I talked about Roger Staubach. Then I finally got into Troy Aikman. And then I got into Tom Brady because had Tom Brady been in Green Bay last week, he wouldn't have been sitting over there on the sideline looking at the tablet. He'd been screaming and hollered, and that's why he's got 6, and that's why he has 1.
No.
And that was...
I tend to agree with you on that right there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you and I agree with.
Yeah.
By the way, throw it out there. We all like Dak, but and whatever. So Dallas is bad. They're not as bad as the Jets, but they may be close.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so if they are bad, so here's the thing. There's 3 teams in the league we think are atrocious. Jets, Jags, Cowboys.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so Justin Fields.
Jerry Jones, you just got to be throwing up right now.
Would you at least look? Justin Fields, quarterbacks Ohio State. 46 touchdowns, 3 picks. #1 high school kid. I can like Dak.
Yeah.
Don't you have to have a meeting whether or not you move off Dak? If you have the 2nd pick and Dallas may end up there, Terry? I mean, I can like Dak and respect him. This kid is great.
Okay, so you take Justin Fields, and right now, the MO coming out of Texas Tech quarterbacks was what? They didn't fare very well. Right. University of Houston, remember when they were doing the run and gun and all that, and they didn't fare very well in the NFL. Matter of fact, Ware won the Heisman Trophy. Nothing in the NFL. So you're looking at Ohio State now, and you're looking, okay, name me the last great quarterback that played in the NFL out of Ohio State, if there's ever been one.
No, So
now you've got the guy in Washington that's
Dwayne Haskins didn't work.
He didn't work. Is this guy like Haskins? I mean,
he's a better athlete.
Okay,
he runs around.
All right, so you got that situation. I think the best,
trade.
You got to look at it. But the question with Dak Prescott is that if in fact he's healthy and he's young, and he will be, he will be. You got to make sure of that. Whether or not you sign him to a long-term deal Or just franchise him again?
I think I'd franchise him one more time.
Year, make sure he just play a healthy year. Yeah, that's probably And then you got the kid down in Clemson, and everyone's going to want him. The Jets going to want him. What are they going to do with Darnold?
Well, I think the Colts.
See, I like Darnold. I like that kid.
So do I.
Yeah, and the Jet quarterback. Yeah.
I think New York doesn't have a brand right now, and in a highly competitive city.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence is hope. They've seen Darnold, and that's what I think they do. I think, by the way,
hope with the Jets or hope with the Giants?
Well, no, Giants will stay on Daniel Jones.
I see. Now you and I agree to that. I got a lot of people that tell me I'm crazy, but I said no. I like Dan. There's a lot we can work with here.
Yeah, with Darnold you can as well, but the difference is the Jets are poorly run, the Giants aren't, and the Jets will say, Trevor Lawrence going to solve everything.
I got news for them there.
It's not.
Yeah.
Terry, they're the only team in the NFL except the Jaguars. You could make an argument they need a player in every unit. All 10. They need a player
they
everywhere.
They do some crazy things, and I don't understand a lot of these athletes. Le'Veon Bell was going to be the savior up there for running back. Le'Veon Bell is just dumb as a box of rocks.
Oh, come on.
Number one, he should have stayed in Pittsburgh.
Well, he should have stayed in Pittsburgh.
Stay in Pittsburgh where that offense fits you. They feature you.
They loved you.
You're on your way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Brown, same thing. Stay in so you're going to get paid. But what is two? Is $2 or $3 million more when you're making 10 or 12 million worth more, and then to go someplace and be totally a bust? Or
I think
really?
Environment is unless you're LeBron, environment is 75. Like James Harden could score anywhere.
Right.
James Harden's the best scorer in the world in basketball. Like,
yeah, but he's got the ball in his hand, and that's one-on-one. That's basketball. We're talking football.
It's mostly environment.
Yeah.
There's no question.
See, I just think these guys just don't think. And I think all of us old athletes, and that's what I am, we all look at it and go, would I have left Pittsburgh and that incredible bunch of talented players I was playing with so I can make $200,000, making $300,000, I'm going to make $500,000 to go play for Buffalo or whomever?
Yeah.
Would I do that? No. Why? I got a chance to win a Super Bowl.
I will tell you this, though. If I was a running back, I would think about it. Because my career lasts 5-6 years. Quarterback, I wouldn't.
What? Talking about now or then?
No, I'm thinking right now. A running back's the only position in football on offense that you can't change the violence. You're going to get hit without seeing it. Receivers, tight end, it's the only position you can't protect. Now, linebackers, same thing, collisions. But if I was a running back, and I'm sitting there thinking, $14 million down in Tampa with no state tax or $9 million here, I think I'd take it. I think as a running back, I'd go. Now, I'm not saying Le'Veon should have because the Jets are poorly run and the Steelers are great. But I get running backs leaving.
Okay.
I get it.
Okay, they leave it for money. They're not leaving for any other reason than money.
Well,
money. It's money. It's all money.
Well, that's okay, though, but a lot of people do stuff for money.
Yeah. Now, it's got to be big money.
Yes.
It can't be just change. It's got to be cash, big cash.
Yeah, no, but running back,
all right,
I leave for money.
You know, because their careers, running backs in the NFL, everybody always says, well, we got to have a running back. We got this Ezekiel Elliott. And now, we're finding out, as all of us know, running backs, the really good running backs, normally have creases to run in.
Yeah.
And then those that don't have creases are really good at vision and feeling and doing the cutback stuff. And then that's it. Then you do a little play action off of them. And you got to have a running game. Then you sign these guys. Then your offensive line's no good. Now, what good does it do to have a running back? Because he can't go anywhere.
Right.
They don't go anywhere. They don't move the line of scrimmage.
The only running back I've seen in my life.
Barry Sanders.
I was going to say Walter Payton. Noah Jackson was his best offensive lineman. He had 4 bad offensive linemen and was unstoppable. Barry Sanders was great.
Yeah.
Do you know Chris
It's hard not to talk. When you talk great running backs,
Chris Spielman.
Well, the first one comes to mind is Barry.
Chris Spielman told me when he was a Lion and got drafted, he's the only. Chris Spielman was a great.
Yes.
He was one of the best college players of all time. Right. He said you would, as a linebacker, get in line for the tackling drill, and you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. He's
very.
Go ahead. He goes, you'd never want to tackle him. He said he would humiliate you. He goes, you would count and go, I'm not going to be the third guy because he's the third guy to touch it. He says, only player in my career. It's like I had no interest in practice competing against him.
Yeah, remember the old Oklahoma drill?
That's the drill.
Yeah, where they snap the ball and you go straight through there and you go right or left and you just get plastered. Yeah, I can only imagine.
And Spielman was great, and he said, I practice, you would look so bad bad at practice. It's like I had no
Well, Barry Macular, there's a great comedian named Jerry Clower. You ever heard of Jerry Clower? He's a country comedian. Of course not. And he played at Mississippi State, and he played defensive tackle. And he played against this great running back who was a lot like Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And he had a great All-American end by him, and he was chasing this running back, and he gave out in the fourth quarter. He was exhausted, and Jerry said, "You gotta stop chasing him. He'll be back in a minute."
Yeah.
And it's like Barry. And then he comes,
Yeah. All right, we got to roll. I'm way late on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my fault. We just got 17 minutes.
I'm through. You gave me 22 minutes last time.
What time do we come back?
No, you said 22.
We come back.
No, I'm not complaining. I've never been on a show where I've got minutes stuck on my head.
Hey, Alex, how much do we give Terry? 21 and a half minutes.
That's the bull.
That's what they told me.
This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, comedian Bill Burr. Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Kate Berlant. I'm Jacqueline Novak. We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world. That's why we made a podcast, Poog, a quixotic quest for wholeness. Here's a little snippet of us trying out a top dollar massage gun on our muscle manipulation episode. Press on once. Now press the up dot.
Oh, damn, bitch. 2100.
Now, I want you to notice.
Whoa.
Do you want to know the story of the guy who created this device?
No.
No? You're the rudest person.
I'm so rude. I'm here with this free product.
They say float it.
Ow, ow, ow.
And then go deep.
Ow, the right inner thigh has pain. I repeat, the right inner thigh has pain.
You float it in. You float it in.
Whoa, the tension in the calves is reaching an all-time high.
Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal. For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion. This is our hobby. This is our hell. This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's P-O-O-G. Poog on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yo, this is Jeezy, urban philosopher, philanthropist, and the host of the Recession Podcast, a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. I'll bring you raw conversations about systemic racism, mental health, life on the streets, and much more. My guests would include influential figures like Charlemagne the God, Dr. Jess, and Tony Robbins.
You know, Martin Luther King said, a man, or you could say today a person, who hasn't found something they're willing to die for isn't fit to live. Those are pretty strong words. But I really believe in my soul that what changes people is when you find something to serve more than yourself.
So join me on the Recession Podcast by Jeezy. That's RESESSION Podcast. That's right, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer your podcast.
Bill Burr is the voice of Boston and America. He's common sense. He's smart. He's a great comedian. He was just in The King of Staten Island. It's now available on digital Blu-ray, and he is joining us via the Coward Global Satellite Network. So let's start with that. What is it about Boston guys and Dana White and Simmons?
Can we start by saying I am not the voice of Boston?
Okay.
I grew up in the suburbs. I'm not as tough as the guys, at least the Boston I remember. I don't know what Boston's like now. I left like 25 years ago. So
yeah.
I am the voice of some safe suburban, the safe suburbs of South Boston.
Okay, that's fair enough. So Joy has the first question, because you're in this movie, and Joy has a question for you. I have not seen it yet. My daughter has, Joy has. So what's the question?
So, Bill, we have a lot of hair conversations on this show, and you have a pretty glorious mustache in this movie, which is very funny, by the way. Did you grow that? Because that would be very impressive. Or is this a...
Yes, I did. That was a real
grew that mustache?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't shave for a couple of months. Judd Apatow, great Judd Apatow, said, all right, what are we going to do? You're playing a firefighter. What I learned on the movies, you can't have a beard when you're a firefighter because you need the seal for the mask. So we were trying to think, grow the hair out a little bit, do the horseshoe thing. I was like, so then I just said, listen, I think the shaved head's going to look cool. because I saw what the other people looked like. They all had hair, it'd be something different, and then just grew a beard, and hair and makeup sort of were like, what kind of mustache do you want? And I go, all right, I think this guy's probably like an old school guy, so he'll have like more of a, I mean, no firemen really have a mustache. I don't think like that, so it was a little ridiculous. But it was a compliment.
By the way, another Boston guy is Dennis Leary. He's another guy with an edge. These guys are all quick. They're. Now let me ask you this: as a Boston.
Yeah, now Dennis is from real Boston. He's from Charlestown.
Yeah, the
which I'm sure is now like all condos and stuff like that. But back in the day, it was like all bank robbers and Dennis and Tony V.
So, as a Boston guy, if Brady goes to Tampa and wins a Super Bowl, would you be bitter?
I absolutely love this question because every non-Patriots fan has been asking me this, and I can just really see how much this guy has broken your hearts. It's really a testament to how great he is. I absolutely would not be brokenhearted. He put us on the map. We were a joke. I can't say a total joke because we had Drew Bledsoe and Bill Parcells before them, but like, you know, we used to play, it looked like a high school football stadium, aluminum seats. He took us to 9 and we won 6. You can't complain. And what I love is if he wins in Tampa, he'll do what a lot of great quarterbacks have never been able to do, is go to that next team. You know, Joe Namath with the Rams, Johnny Unitas with Chicago, and on and on and on. I'm sorry, with San Diego. If he does this, I think it would be a great thing because I know he's a huge fan of Joe Montana. Joe Montana went to Kansas City, immediately made them a playoff team, but wasn't able to get them a championship. And if he wins it, I just want to know, what is Jim Irsay and the Colts going to say? How are they going to say he underhandedly beat him this time? So I would absolutely love it. Of course, I'm rooting for the Patriots, but if the Patriots don't make it with Cam Newton, which I think we got as good a chance as anybody, I would love to see Tom Brady go up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, sort of the next guy who's already arrived with his title. I would love to see that matchup. I mean, I think that would be an incredible Super Bowl. But I am not bitter at all. In the last 20 years, I got to see all 4 of my sports teams win a championship. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I would have thought I would see the Red Sox win a World Series before I ever saw the Patriots win a Super Bowl. I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't even feel like we were even in the league. We just, you know, had guys, you know, on work release from prison, plowing the field to give us a field goal. Our fans took the goalpost out of the stadium and got electrocuted on some wires. Somebody stabbed the police horse. We were like banned from Monday Night Football. The razor blade guy buys our team, and then, you know, somebody takes their towel off in front of a woman reporter. We were a joke. It was like, it was an S show. Until, obviously, Parcells and Drew Bledsoe. I'm not trying to discredit what they did, but, like, ever since Bob Kraft, I would say this, the 3 greatest coaching hires ever, Parcells to Pete Carroll to Bill Belichick. I don't know how you top that.
You know, it's funny because there's always a saying in New England, in Bill we trust. And Bill got a system and he's tough and he would call out Brady. And it's funny because you're an artist, you're a comedian, you're an actor. You need freedom.
Stretching it there. I'll go with that though, but all right.
But you need, Judd Apatow's super smart, but Judd gives you the ability and the freedom to kind of, you know, see your way through perhaps what you're doing. Belichick doesn't give you
He saw the Matt Castle that I was, and he built the offense around me.
But if Tom left Belichick, and there was this sense that Belichick wore his ass out. He was exhausted from it. If you had to pick...
Oh, my God. Are you going to go Real Housewives on me here?
Well, I'm saying...
You weren't in the locker room. You don't know what happened. Who you talk to?
I'm American.
Some other guy who never played professional sports by the water cooler? You don't know what happened. How about this? How about Tom did everything he could to make the team win? He was constantly deferring money so we could get better players. He's at the end. How about he goes to the sunshine, doesn't deal with the winter at state taxes? He gave us 6. I mean, anybody who's upset with that move, you're just a miserable person.
Belichick or Brady, only one can win a Super Bowl next 5 years. Who would you choose? Where's your loyalty?
I'll tell you, this is how much I love both of them. That's tough. I wouldn't want to make, that's like Sophie's Choice. I want Tom to win so bad. I just want to hear how the Colts are going to cry on this one. And all of you guys in sports media, the way you guys backed all their ridiculous complaining over the years is really shameful, but I also understand that it's a symptom of having a 24-hour news network now. You got to have something to talk about. But to be honest with you, I don't care. I think I would have cared before this pandemic, but at this point, I mean, I'm just happy sports are back. I'd like to see. Obviously, I want to see both of them win again and prove to everybody who said that the ridiculous statements that he's a systems quarterback, he can plug anybody in, and people who just are constantly trying to come at Belichick because they can't figure out what he's doing, saying all kinds of horrible things about him. I hope they both, I hope Tom wins one this year, we won next year, and then I just want to hear what all these just babies, these whiners, are going to say. I got to tell you, all those years with Dan Marino's with the Dolphins, and they would kick our ass down the Orange Bowl, they would always beat us. Like, I never said anything bad about I love Dan Marino. The guy, I love Derek Jeter. All of those guys broke my sports heart 1,000 times, but I would never sit there and talk negatively about them that they were doing something underhanded. It's like they beat you. You lost by 35. Enough.
Yeah, that's true. So now that you're doing movies and you're a comedian and now you act, and you had a great. We talked during the break. This is smart because I'm not much of an actor guy, although I love movies. And I said, how do you act?
I like football, but I love football. All right.
How do you act? Tell me the answer you gave me because I thought this was a really good answer. I said, how do you fake it? How do you pretend after being authentic on a stage for 30 years?
Well, thank you for giving me the nod that I haven't been full of S when I've been on stage. But, no, it's just all... I learned from watching a guy, Jeffrey Tambor. He's the guy I learned the most from on how to do comedy, where I would watch him on Larry Sanders. What made it funny was he wasn't trying to be funny. He just believed everything that he was saying. And that show was on at the same time I'd first gone down to New York. And I remember walking up the street on the Upper East Side, and I saw this beginning of a bar fight spilled out onto the street. And there was these two guys squaring off, and I could tell that neither one of them wanted to fight. But neither one could back down because all their friends were watching. So they were terrified. But because I had no skin in the game, when I watched it, it was hilarious to me. But neither one of them were trying to be funny. But they're trying to be, like, tough when they were actually scared made it funny. And I remember it finally what Jeffrey Tambor was doing clicked to me when he would be upset on the show about his character not getting the respect he felt he deserved and being this second banana and sort of treated like this buffoon, not only by the public but by the guys that he worked with. What made it funny was that he cared. He wasn't trying to be funny. He really just wanted to have this respect. And there's this great scene one time when he's yelling at Larry Sanders, and Rip Torn is actually listening on the answering machine. And the look of pain on his face when he discovers that as he's pouring his heart out to Larry Sanders, that he's still a joke, was it was hilarious and heartbreaking all at the same time. So I feel like that's what I learned, and that's what I'm trying to do.
That's such a smart answer, isn't it? It's a really good answer. Yeah.
Every once in a while I get lucky, Colin.
So when's the last time you did a stand-up act? Because you can't go inside anymore. When's the last time?
March 10th. I opened for, I did a show with Dean Del Rey, great comic and former frontman for a rock band. And he loves Bon Scott. He has like a tattoo of a killer tattoo right on his side. And he did it was like 40 years since Bon Scott had passed. So he put together this comedy and tribute to Bon Scott AC/DC show. So me, Dean Del Rey, and Mark Maron, going back, I forget who else was on the show. We did stand-up first, and then a band came out with all these heavy hitters like Steve Gorman, Brad Wilk. Of course, I'm naming all the drummers. I'm a drum geek. Just all these amazing players. And we had like the greatest night ever, and then it was was just over. I can't wait to get back on stage, though, I can tell you that.
King of Staten Island available, digital, Blu-ray, DVD, August 25th. So you don't like being called, what did I call you? You're the everyman of Boston, and you were offended by that because you grew up in the burbs.
No, you said I spoke for Boston. Yeah. And I'd like to go back there and actually be able to relax at some point, so I can't accept that title.
This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, Jeff Pearlman, Jim Gray, PJ Fleck, Maxx Crosby.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Zuri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP, you. You're the star of your life, so own it. Join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines, keeping you politically informed, mixed in with a little pop culture. You never know what you're going to hear. Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm Kate Berlant. I'm Jacqueline Novak. We're comedians, best friends, and consumerist hogs hemorrhaging cash in the wellness world. That's why we made a podcast, Poog, with the Big Money Players Network and iHeartRadio. Though we suffer from no ailments, we are looking to heal. For us, salvation lies in the next product, practice, or potion. This is our hobby. This is our hell. This is our naked desire for free products. This is Poog. That's P-O-O-G. Poog on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
The new book is Three Ring Circus, and what's great about dynasties in sports is they never get old. They just don't. You can read about dysfunction on dynasties. I just read a Patriots book, and it's like it's just incredible. I just can't get enough on dynasties, and obviously the Shaq, Kobe, Jerry West, Phil Jackson, a lot of egos, a lot of greatness, and Jeff Pearlman, Three Ring Circus. The book is now out, and he is joining us live. So, it's funny, Jeff. Usually, dysfunction punctures momentum. And Kobe and Shaq, different backgrounds, a lot of dysfunction, but they made it work for quite a while. How did they make it work?
The number one thing is they had two of the five most talented guys on the court at all times. And that's a huge thing. I just think they chose to coexist. Not lovingly, but they chose to coexist. And I really think what the Lakers did, the most important thing they did, is they always had these role players who doubled as almost like guidance counselors. So whether it was Derek Harper, Rick Fox, J.R. Reed, John Sally, on and on, Ron Harper, there are always guys who are there to kind of soothe things over in the locker room. Brian Shaw, guys like that. And it just made a world of difference. So even though it's funny because Shaq and Kobe occupied their own orbits in that locker room. And the media would go to Shaq and he would say something about Kobe. And then they would go to Kobe. And it was the most passive-aggressive nonsense ever. Truly ludicrous. But these guys, these veterans, were all able to handle it well and sort of work it out so it was okay. It wasn't that big a deal. And also, Phil Jackson, to his credit, like when Kurt Rambis was the interim coach, Shaq's big complaint was he needs to stop babying Kobe. He needs to stop babying Kobe. And Phil Jackson didn't baby Kobe. He kind of let it be. He let these guys run the locker room, and it kind of worked.
So I remember when Shaq was in college. In fact, I talked to Jerry Tarkanian. I was in Vegas, and he told me about Shaq. He said, there's a kid down in Louisiana. He's going to change the game. But Kobe was different. He grew up in Italy. He was a high school player. We didn't know much about him. I mean, literally, it wasn't a time when you drafted a guard out of high school, okay? So, Jerry, you don't think about it as a risk, but Jerry West drafts a high schooler, makes a trade with Charlotte. Was there any misgivings? Was he nervous? Was there any doubt for Jerry West with Kobe when he's 18?
All right, so it's the best thing ever. So, it's all John Calipari's fault. It's all John Calipari's fault. So, John Calipari is a coach of the Nets. He's a young coach, first year. And they have decided they are going to draft Kobe Bryant with the 8th pick in the 96 draft. It is a lock. That is who we are drafting. And John Nash is the general manager. They're all on board. They've brought Kobe in 4 times. They love him. Leading up to the draft, they actually meet with Kobe's parents. And they're like, we're going to draft your son. And Joe and Pam Bryant are like, that's great. He'll be nearby. Day before the draft, Kobe Bryant calls John Calipari on his own and says, I want to get away from my family. I don't want to play in New Jersey. I don't want you to draft me. Kobe's agent calls John Calipari and says, yeah, if you guys draft Kobe, he probably won't play this year, or he might go to Italy. Calipari's freaking out. He's like, oh my God. He goes to John Nash, the GM. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. What are we going to do? John Nash, you need to calm down. It's all just a bluff. It's just a bluff. Kerry Kittles out of Villanova is represented by David Falk. David Falk calls John Calipari and says, Kerry really wants to play with you guys. If you don't draft him if he's there, I'm never going to have a player go to you again. Calipari is freaking out. He goes into John Nash. John, I don't know what we're going to do. John Nash is like, Cal, you need to calm down. It's all just a bluff. And behind the scenes, there's this whole mechanism to get Kobe to LA because he already signed a deal with Adidas. They don't want him playing in the swamps in New Jersey. They want him in LA. Jerry West is friends with Kobe's agent, Arntel. And John Nash is telling Cal, we got to do this. We got to do this. We have to draft him. He's going to change the franchise. It's the damn morning of the draft. John Calipari, who has in his contract his final personnel say, gathers everyone around and he says, I've made a decision. If Kerry Kittles is there at number 8, we're going to take Kerry Kittles. And if he's not there, we're going to take Kobe Bryant. And John Nash just does one of those and puts his hands in his head. Of course, Kerry Kittles is there at number 8. I talked to Kittles. Kittles was like, I played with Kobe in the summer. I would have drafted Kobe too. They end up drafting Kerry Kittles. Jerry West is doing a freaking dance in his office because he knows the next 4 picks are not going to be Kobe Bryant. He has his deal worked out with Charlotte, and he ends up trading Vlade for the rights to Kobe. And he says to Jerry Buss, right after that happens, I just got you the best player in this draft because they had worked out Kobe twice, once against Michael Cooper, once against Dante Jones, and it was the best 2 workouts Jerry West had ever seen.
Wow. How about that? You know, when you do these books, I mean, again, it's scuba gear. You deep dive. There's always a crazy story. You have to find. I mean, you have hundreds of sources per book. Was there who did you track down that was crazy? What was the craziest story in the book?
I mean, my favorite track down. I love the track downs. And J.R. Ryder. You know, he was a Laker for 1 year. People forget J.R. Ryder was a Laker for 1 year. Former slam dunk champ. So J.R. Ryder, who I love, I actually really love. He twice in his career, when writers wrote something that he did not like, actually said to them, I know where your family lives. Like that was his threat to them. I know where your family lives. All I had was an address for J.R. Ryder. I did not have a phone number. And I was going to be in Arizona. So I decided I'm going to drive to J.R. Ryder's house. And I drive out there. I get there like 9:30, which is a little early, but that's okay. I knock on the door. A kid answers. I have my USFL book with me. I'm like, hey, is J.R. Ryder here? He's like, hold on. A woman comes to the door. I'm like, hey, my name's Jeff Pearlman. I'm a writer. Is J.R. Ryder here? She goes, hold on. They close the door. I hear her and a guy, adult male, yelling at each other. And then the door opens, and there's J.R. Ryder. And he goes, who are you? And I'm like, hey, my name's Jeff Pearlman, and I'm a writer, and I'm doing a book about the... Bro. Are you effing kidding me? Bro. You just knock on my... Bro, you just knock on my door? Are you kidding me? He opens the door and comes out, and he's like this far away from me. And he's like, bro, that is not cool. And I'm convinced at this moment I'm about to get punched by J.R. Ryder. And he goes, what's that book you have? And I'm like, oh, it's a book I did about the USFL. Is that Trump? Is that Trump? I'm like, yeah, Trump owned a team. What are you working on? I'm like, well, I'm doing a book about the Lakers during the Shaq Kobe years. All right, man. I'll talk to you. He ends up giving me 2 hours.
Wow.
J.R. Ryder. And he was awesome. And I just want to say, the best story ever is J.R. Ryder's playing for the Lakers, and they're on the road, and he oversleeps. And he asked the front desk clerk to write him a note to give to Phil Jackson explaining that he did not get a wake-up call. So literally, J.R. Ryder arrives at practice and gives Phil Jackson a note, like a student late for class, that says, Dear Coach Jackson, we are sorry on behalf of whatever hotel was the Hyatt. We regret that we were unable to provide J.R. Ryder with the requisite wake-up call. It is our fault. And he gives it to Phil Jackson as his excuse for not being on practice on time.
These are the kind of stories you get. It's a great book. It's called Three Ring Circus with Jeff Pearlman. You know, it's when you read the book, Shaq and Magic Johnson has this quality too. Magic likes you to ask for help. Like, if Magic's offended if you move to LA and don't ask him for help. And I think Shaq wanted to be a little bit of a father figure for Kobe, right? Like not only the physical stature he was so big, but you know, he went to college, and but it didn't work that way. And why? Tell the audience why, because I think Shaq wanted that and would have been comfortable with that, but it didn't work that way.
I talked to a guy named Mike Penberthy. Do you remember Mike Penberthy?
Yes, I know. Yes, I do.
He was he played with the Lakers for a spell for a year, and he went to Masters College. And he told me when he first got to the Lakers, he made the team, and he didn't have a suit. He only had a jacket he bought at Nordstrom's off the rack. And Shaq sees him wearing this jacket, and he says, Mike, do you own any suits? And Penberthy's like, I don't. Shaq's like, tomorrow, meet me here. And he brings his personal suit maker, his outfitter, and he pays for 6 of Mike Penberthy's suits.
Wow.
When Shaq was teammates with Mark Madsen, he would go around and ask women if they were Mormon and if they were single, so he could introduce them to Mark Madsen, who was Mormon and single. Like, he would fly people in, the parents of teammates in, to see their kid's first game in the NBA. He would pay for the funerals of teammates' parents. Penberthy said to me, he's the best teammate who's ever existed, just the best teammate who ever existed. And that's what he wanted to be. To his credit, he just wanted to be that. And Kobe comes along, and Kobe's first introduction to the Lakers is first training camp in Hawaii. Dale Harris is a coach. All the players gather around, and they introduce each other. So it's like, hey, I'm Nick Van Exel, I'm Eddie Jones, I'm Kobe Bryant. I played at Lower Merion last year, and nobody here is going to punk me. Like, that was his introduction to Lakers. Nobody here is going to punk me. He's 18 years old. And Kobe just wants him to say, can we go out to dinner? Can you help me with this? I don't understand this. And it just wasn't who he was. And Shaq kind of had this thing in his head. I'm Batman. Kobe's going to be Robin. I'm Big Brother. He's going to be Little Brother. But it just wasn't who Kobe Bryant was. And you're right. You are 100% right. The Magic Shaq comparison is a really good one. He just wanted you to ask, and he just wanted to be loved. And Kobe was not someone who did that.
By the way, Jeff adds a prologue to the book. The book had been written when Kobe passed, so he adds some texture and context to that as well. It's in the book. The book is called Three Ring Circus. What I love about this stuff, there's a shot of the book. You know, it's interesting now that LeBron's in town. The Lakers are a fascinating legacy. You've had, there was kind of the flaky Wilt into the sort of academic, prickly Kareem, into everybody loves Magic, into bigger-than-life Shaq, and then there was there's Magic, and then there's kind of the aloof prodigy Kobe, and now it's LeBron. And I know, you're not writing a book with LeBron in mind, but I love your take on this, is that what's fascinating about the Lakers dynasty is all these superstars have been unique. They're all there is a Magic Shaq thing that's kind of similar, but yes. You're kind of feeling on how if the Lakers won the title, Jeff, how Kobe and Magic were so deeply embedded into the lore of the franchise. Here comes LeBron moving into town. He's already won titles. If he wins, what does it mean for the Lakers? How much of a Laker is LeBron, in your opinion?
It's so funny. I have a 20-year-old nephew named Jordan, and he's always like, LeBron is the greatest Laker ever, right? It's like, no. What are you talking about? No. I feel like in history, we're always going to think of LeBron first and foremost for Cleveland.
Yes.
I just think it's a guarantee, and that's what it is. And I feel like that's the big difference here, is that when you think of Kobe, he's a Laker. When you think of Magic, he's a Laker. Even Shaq with the 4 years in Orlando, he's a Laker. Wilt Chamberlain, who played in Philly, a Laker. Jerry West, a Laker. And I do think the big difference here is his legacy will be great. He brought the Lakers a title. It's wonderful. I just don't think he goes down the same way because I don't think he will be thought of as a Laker, a career Laker. And I think here in LA, that really means something. Not just that you played here, but that you, like Kobe, when he died, I'm a native New Yorker. I've lived here for 6 years. The thing that just did it for me and shocked me is how much people felt that death. And they felt like it wasn't just a star dying, it was an icon dying. It was a part of LA dying.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if LeBron has that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. When Kobe passed away, as somebody that lives in Los Angeles, I was in an airport. I just landed. I literally was sick to my stomach. I went to the back of a restaurant. It was very emotional. Like I felt like Los Angeles lost something. He was so Los Angeles. It's very much. It feels Troy Aikman Dallas. Aikman. He sounds like he's from Dallas. He looks like he's from Dallas. He is Dallas. And I'm with you. I think LeBron is remarkable, but the depth of that relationship with fans. Speaking of depth, the book is called Three Ring Circus. There's dozens of stories. Jeff writes a book every couple years. We bring him on. Strongly recommend it. And boy, I'll tell you, it's a dynasty with egos and stories and conflict, and you get all of it there. Jeff, it's great talking to you again. I haven't seen you in a while. Keep safe for you and your fam, your kids and your wife, and continued success.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure being here. I appreciate it.
The book is out.
This is the Herd Best of. Coming up next, Jim Gray. Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flame Monroe. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back of it. Potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait to the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people put in place to think like us and look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Doughboy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce mama? Don't I look like Beyonce mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's not about zoo animals. It's about the greatest athletes of all time. Jim's first interview, he was 18 years old, was Muhammad Ali, who was the biggest star in the world. He is now joining us live, and we appreciate that. All right, how'd you get Muhammad Ali at 18 years old? What's the secret sauce to that, Jimbo?
Hey, Colin, thanks for having me. Well, I was a sports intern for the ABC station in Denver, KBTV, and my internship expired, and they were converting from film to videotape, so all the union guys took the buyout, and so a bunch of people who didn't really have any idea what they were doing became videotape editors. I was in my edit room one morning very early getting ready for the draft, a Red Miller show. He was the Broncos coach. A lady named Sue Tews, the assignment editor, came running in. She said, Muhammad Ali's 2.5 hours early at the airport. Run out and get him. Well, Ali was getting ready to fight Spinks, and then he was going to fight a Denver Bronco named Lyle Alzado. Well, I'd never done an interview before, so I went into the weatherman's office, tried to find a coat and tie, couldn't find anything, went out to Stapleton International Airport, did the interview with Ali. After the first question, he said, "You're the one that's doing this interview?" And everybody started to laugh. Well, Colin, that just made me feel so much more comfortable because I had gone from nervous about interviewing the most visible and famous person on the planet to now they were laughing, but they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing to make me comfortable, the whole entourage. And so after the third or fourth question, he said, "You sound like the local Howard Cosell." Colin, that was the greatest compliment I had ever had in my life, and it gave me so much confidence. I took the interview back to the station. The news director was a man named Roger Ogden for ABC there. He looked at the tape, and he was with me for about 45 minutes, and he looked at it again, and he said, "We're going to put you and this tape on the air. It's barely adequate." So I tell everybody I've been barely adequate ever since.
The only athlete that rivals him in terms of flair and greatness, Muhammad Ali, is Michael Jordan. They're both like great looking, stylish, thoughtful, smart. What was it like to interview Jordan?
He was always impeccable. I mean, I never once saw Michael have a bad public moment. He always was great. He'd pat every youngster on the head. When he'd walk out of the building, back when there was proximity, he'd sign autographs. He was nice to the security people. So interviewing him, Michael was just, easy. He was easy to talk to. He was easy to be around. I know his teammates in The Last Dance have a different portrayal, but in terms of how he was with me and with the media, he was great, and he was just terrific in all those years that we had him on NBC, and in the pregame meetings where he would come in and Marv or Ahmad would interview him. He was just a perfect gentleman, and then a few times that I got to be with him outside of the court. In Barcelona, we played golf on a few occasions, and he was just great. There was nothing intimidating off the court about Michael Jordan.
What about, here's somebody that's interesting. Mike Tyson, you interviewed him after the bizarre ear-biting Evander experience. Now that had to be odd, right?
That was quite odd, and that was one that I knew when it was going to happen after he bit the ear that nothing like this would ever happen again. And he left the ring and didn't talk in the ring, and we went back underneath. I was working with Showtime, where I still do the boxing, and David Dinkins, who is the producer, was in my ear, and he said, "See if you can get Don to get him to come out." So Don King brought him out, and Colin, it's the only time that I have ever seen actually somebody who is alive, and I could see their skull. That's how deep over his eye the headbutt was, and the wound that had opened. You could see the orbital bone in his skull, and that's why he felt he had to bite Evander Holyfield. That was the reasoning he had, that he had to retaliate. So we did the interview, and I took it in chronological order and asked him what had gone on, and finally, was that the proper response to bite his ear? And he answered the question. And I've always had tremendous respect and admiration for Mike Tyson, because at his worst moments, and he's had some bad, despicable moments, at his worst moments, Colin, he always had the wherewithal to stand there and answer the questions. He didn't hide behind some PR person.
Yeah.
He didn't come out with a statement 4 days later. He stood there, and he took his medicine, and he gave you a response. And that's very, very rare.
Were you surprised surprised the pushback, I certainly was, the LeBron decision interview created. I still can't figure out why the nation imploded. I thought LeBron looked nervous and thoughtful. Were you shocked by kind of the national response and the anger at LeBron?
Yes, I was, and like Rich Paul has said to me and Maverick Carter, none of us had a crystal ball. None of us could foresee what went on there. And could we have been more sensitive to the fans in Cleveland? Absolutely. And could we have explained better that we were giving away millions upon millions of dollars, the biggest donation ever in the history of the Boys and Girls Club? Wow. Yes, we could have. Wow. So yes, we could have done better, but to make LeBron into a villain, it was wrong then, and it should have never occurred. And if you look at that show now and what the decision has become, that was the moment. It was the Curt Flood moment for this generation of player empowerment and of the birth, really, of communicating through social media and the rise of the Players Tribune and just how things go now. The reverberations of that show and the passage of time, the NBA players and all of sports, every player in sports owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to LeBron James.
Talking to GOATs. Now, we know you've done Tiger and we know you've done Brady, and I'm going to save those for people to buy the book because I want an autographed copy as well. But I got to ask you this. I remember interviewing Charles Barkley when I was a local reporter, and I knew he was going to be a star. He was so funny. He made fun of my shoes. He made fun of me. You just knew. You're like, that guy's going to be hysterical on TV. Is there anybody that's not a star that you interviewed and you just loved? You just went home and that maybe we wouldn't talk about, or maybe a lower star, or somebody perhaps you haven't interviewed you want to?
Well, Charles was great, and I say in the book that Charles was the most entertaining, most fun guy to be around, and we used to go up and down the Ramblas at night in Barcelona at the Olympics, and then hung out with him a tremendous amount, and Mike Tyson threatened to kill me on the air, and 45 seconds later, he kissed me on the cheek, and I'm still trying to figure out what's more disturbing. Charles Barkley kissed me on my cheek twice on national television, and for no apparent reason. At least Mike was trying to make up for threatening to kill me.
Yeah.
Charles did it, and I still don't know why he did it. But to answer your question, I mean, there's a lot of guys who I've walked away, and I thought, that's what a pleasant, really great guy. And, they're superstars, too. I mean, Brady is as nice a guy and as cordial as anybody you'd ever want to meet. Wayne Gretzky, Julius Erving, Joe Namath. I don't know anybody who's more comfortable, who's been a bigger superstar, who forced a merger of a league and brought the AFL to this Super Bowl that we now see, than Joe Namath. So, and a guy who was really understated, but who had just an incredible heart and really didn't seek the limelight or anything. I love spending time around Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He was really special, Colin.
Oh, yeah. My first job, I don't want to waste time here, my first job at a college was covering boxing. So instead of going to your usual first job in Midland, Texas, I got to cover Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and I've always thought of it as the great career break. Now, I made about $8 an hour, and I lived on peanut brittle. But both of us started basically for free. The book is called Talking to Goats. Buy it. I want a copy. This is just great. Jim, absolute pleasure. The Emmy-winning sports reporter, Sportscaster of the Year in America in 1997. Great seeing you, and thanks for stopping by our show.
Colin, thanks for having me. Love your show. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, PJ Fleck.
PJ Fleck, the hot young college football coach, one of the really interesting, fascinating guys in this sport, joins us. 4th year at Minnesota, 23-15. So it's funny. When I watch you, you got a lot of energy. You are just jumping through my television set. And I think to myself, who is this guy's mentor? Who is his idol? Who is your guy? Were you a Bo? Were you a Woody? Where did you get the inspiration? When you get to a dark time in your life and you lose a recruit, you lose a game, who do you go back to? Who's PJ Fleck's mentor in this stuff?
That's a great question, Colin. Well, first of all, you got to know that I was an elementary school teacher and have an elementary education degree before I even got into professional football and then obviously get into coaching. But it really dates back to a few guys. Jim Tressel's really the guy that first took a chance on me, and I was a GA at Ohio State during the 2006 run where we lost to Florida in the national championship. And
I still remember going through that year going, boy, this coaching thing's not that hard. I mean, you show up, your first year coaching, you're undefeated, you play in the game of the century, you win, and then you go get beat by Florida. But there were so many lessons Coach Tressel taught me of how to care for the complete person in this profession, not just the football player, but academically, athletically, socially, and spiritually. And then when you look at Mike Nolan, who was my head coach when I played for the San Francisco 49ers, who also thought that I should be able to get into coaching. And if it wasn't for those two guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. And then Greg Schiano kind of helped me with college and in the pros. And here we are today.
You know, one of the reasons, I don't know much about COVID, I wear a mask, but the one thing I said that I was rooting for college football is there is no Joe Burrow if he didn't play last year. He probably goes undrafted. That you often recruit young men who come from tough environments. You can literally change their life. And if we would not have played college football, let's be honest, after about 20 guys, PJ, in the first round of the draft, most of these guys played their way into getting drafted in the second, third, fourth round. You literally can change lives. And there was a point a month ago, we didn't know 3 weeks ago we were going to have Big Ten football. How was it landing for you that you want to be respectful to COVID and the dangers of it, but no football? There's a lot of kids that need it.
Well, there's a lot of kids that need it. You know, this is their way to be able to, one, get an education paid for, one, get a bachelor's, sometimes get a master's. We have some kids getting their doctorate degree that if it wasn't for football, they wouldn't have those opportunities. But we've stressed to our team, we're a proactive football team, not a reactive football team. This isn't about just because COVID-19 came up. You have to have contingency plans upon contingency plans in all areas of these young people's lives. I mean, here they are, the one normal thing they've all had in their life that they've all been able to schedule their whole life around was football. Then football was taken away from them. They left us for 3-4 months, and then you get them all back together. You're playing, you're not playing, you're playing, you're not playing. And by the way, there's a national pandemic going on with testing and everything else that we have. So it really is, I'm really thankful that we do have football back in the mix, but I'm even more thankful because it's a safe environment for our young people to be in as they continue to play football and go towards their dreams of playing in the National Football League as well, or in the professional world.
You're two-time MAC Coach of the Year, Big Ten Coach of the Year, and this is not meant. I'm asking this respectfully because you're an unbelievable coach, but have you ever looked across the sideline as a young coach and thought, I'm coaching against Urban Meyer. I'm coaching against Jim Harbaugh. You know, a guy that was in the Super Bowl. Have you ever had one of those moments as a young coach and thought, I am in the Big Ten. I'm on national television. I mean, 6 years ago, PJ, that may have been a dream. You're living a life a young coach mostly never gets to.
Well, I am living my dream. I tell our team that all the time and our staff. My job as a coach is to make everybody else's dreams come true because mine has already come true. I don't come from a long line of lineage of coaches. My dad killed bugs for a living. My mom's a teacher's aide. We have no coaching in our background. It was all about education. My sister's a kindergarten teacher. My mom was a special education assistant. And I got into the elementary school teaching. Really ancient Rome on that side is where I have a specialty. So when you start to think about how I got started and where I was, I'm incredibly thankful for everything that I've been able to get. But I've looked across in the MAC, looking at Frank Solich. I mean, these people had no idea probably who I even was at 31, 32 years old in the MAC. Getting a chance to coach against Urban Meyer when I was at Western Michigan. And even when we get to Minnesota, you're across from James Franklin, who I think is one of the best coaches in America. You get a chance to be against Gus Malzahn in the Outback Bowl and be able to coach against those guys. And for someone who comes not from the coaching tree of so many others, I take a lot of pride into who raised me in the profession. You know, I wear a tie on the sideline, not for me, not to be looked at, but because Mike Nolan wore a tie on the sideline, who's one of my biggest influences, and then Jim Tressel wore a tie on the sideline, who's my biggest influences. And it's my way to be able to thank every single person who made me me. Because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in the position that I am. And they put me in those positions. And I think not even just looking across the sideline. I remember when I was a GA at Ohio State, looking next to me and seeing Jim Tressel saying, I'm actually on this guy's staff. It's always been fun. I'm very appreciative for where I am, and I have an amazing staff around me.
that are able to make the success possible at times.
So it's interesting, and I had said I remember years and years. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I remember when Urban Meyer went to Utah, and he beat Oregon and Cal. Utah did, and Oregon was pretty good. They had Mike Bellotti. They were winning games, and I remember telling my friends, I said, I don't know who this guy is with a different name, but that dude can coach. He's got 2-star players, and he's beating people with 3- and 4-star players. So you have now twice gone into a program and very quickly turned it around. And this is really a business question as much as it is a football question. So when you go into a culture like Minnesota football that didn't have, that's not Alabama. Give me 2 things. How do you turn around a business that doesn't have a winning culture, and not only did you do it, you did it quickly?
Yeah, 2 things. One, you never sacrifice what you really want down the road for what you want immediately right now. That's very difficult to do in our profession. We've won where we've been because we've done it with a lot of high school players. We've played and have been in year 2s of programs where we're the youngest team in America, but it was necessary to have the success down the road. And the second thing is you win with people, period. We don't get all the 4-star, 5-stars. I think in the Auburn game they had 54 stars and we had 5. But we call ourselves How University, and it's the how of a person that makes them really special. It's their heart, it's their spirit, it's their unconquerable will, it's their crack on the shoulder, not just a little chip. It's finding a way to constantly give your people an advantage, being proactive, and really getting yourself around a really positive environment where you can find a way to be able to grow in that environment every single day, fail, grow, and want to come back the next day to do it all over again. So that's what we've been able to do, but people is the biggest thing. We have incredible people inside our organization. We have an incredible culture with our row the boat culture, our never give up mantra. And again, it might be a little bit different. It might be maybe not what everybody does, but it's our way, and it's the only way I know. And we're really happy with where we're at and where our program's headed as well.
PJ Fleck, Minnesota football coach. By the way, you said your dad killed bugs. He was. Give me a little more on that. What's that story?
Terminix. He was a Terminix man. He went there and made sure you didn't have all those creepy crawlers in the house. He worked for AT&T prior to that too, so he did a lot of things. He's a hard-working man, blue collar.
I love that. I love your story. I think your energy's infectious. You're incredibly easy to root for. Okay, folks, their season starts. They're hosting Michigan. That's about 30 days from now, right? At home against Michigan in 30 days. They were 11-2 last year. They beat Herbert in the out. Love it. So easy to root for. PJ, congrats to you. Continued success to you and your staff and your kids.
Cal, appreciate it, man. Row the boat, Sky Ma. Go Gophers.
This is the Herd Best Of. Coming up next, Maxx Crosby. Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
This is Sammy J, and I have some exciting news to share. We are back for Season 2 of my podcast, Let's Be Real with Sammy J. Season 1 had some amazing guests, including YouTube sensation Liza Koshy and NBA All-Star Kevin Love.
Nothing robs us of more human potential than mental illness.
This season will have more revealing and unfiltered conversations with celebrities, influencers, activists, and athletes, including the amazingly talented Anthony Ramos.
How do we dig deeper in what we say as artists if we aren't digging deeper in our own lives?
TikTok sensation Dixie D'Amelio.
This time last year, I was on the bus to field hockey games. I didn't even do TikTok.
And to give back, my guests will also talk about a charity that's close to their hearts.
Come on, Sammy, doing all this important work in the world. I'm saying 17, man, come on.
Listen to Let's Be Real with Sammy J on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
And he's from, like, Rochester, Michigan, so you would think, oh, he played for Michigan. No, they didn't recruit him. Oh, Michigan State. No, they didn't recruit him. He goes to Eastern Michigan, and he's the best defensive lineman for the Raiders, and his stats are fantastic. They forced 5 turnovers, and he's in Vegas, baby. And we love Vegas on this show. Maxx Crosby, Raiders defensive end, is joining us live from Vegas. So, good Lord. First of all, it's great to have you on. And, I'm sitting there thinking, nobody offered you. So how many offers did you get out of high school?
I had one. It was Eastern Michigan. It's funny. Being from Michigan, I would think somebody would want me, but I didn't get anybody. So, Eastern was the only one, and they offered me, and I was expecting maybe some more offers, but they were the only one, so I committed right away.
It feels like honestly, Max, it feels like Gruden and the Raiders are a good fit for you and your personality. And I'm not there every day, but give me your relationship with Gruden. I mean, Gruden's a tough guy and he's a fighter, and you're obviously a fighter to go to Eastern Michigan and end up as a great NFL player. What is Gruden like to play for?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Oakland, now the Las Vegas Raiders are, it's just a perfect fit for me and my personality. We're hard-nosed, and Gruden loves guys like that. He wants guys that love football, and, that's everything I am. It's an awesome, organization. It's fun, and we have a lot of fun, and it's laid back, but when it's time to work, they're on it. They push me personally every day to my limits, and I know they do that with everybody else. So it's an awesome environment to be around, and we're really just having fun and trying to be the best we can be.
Well, you're winning, and that's all I know. By the way, you're kind of a power football team. You run the ball, you get after it. Now, Vegas can be distracting. As a young guy from cold weather Michigan, and you got a beautiful girlfriend, and you go to Vegas. Do you go to the casinos ever? You all football? I mean, what's it like to live there for a young guy?
Yeah, I moved here in February, so I kind of got to see the town for the first time, and it was awesome. It's beautiful. There's a lot going on all the time, but for me personally, especially with this COVID going on, and everybody's got to be safe, and nobody wants to miss games. I literally have the same routine every day. I come home, I eat good, I hang out with the dogs and my girl, and we just relax. So it's not like I'm living on the strip. I'm far away from that, so I'm definitely ducked off and just having a good time and relaxing.
So you're in a division now with Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. When you guys beat, and nobody else is doing this, you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Take me inside a little bit, what it is like to play with Mahomes. Is he talkative? Does he audible a lot? Is he a trash talker? What is it like to face Mahomes, the world's best football player, many believe now?
Yeah, I believe that too. He's a once in a lifetime type talent. The guy, he doesn't really talk much. He's super focused when he's on the field, but the way he plays is just so much different than any other quarterback you face. It's just like when you play the Chiefs, it's not like a regular football game. You're going to be running for your life trying to get him down. He's trying to extend plays, trying to make, underneath passes behind the back. He'll literally do anything. So he's a different type of player. And, every time we play KC, we know it's going to be a crazy game.
So last time you beat him, and I thought this story was hysterically funny. It's so Raiders, it's so Gruden, it's perfect. So you guys drive the bus around the victory lap thing, and Gruden, it's so funny. So Gruden was asked about it yesterday. I got to play this bite of Gruden getting all pissy. Here's Gruden yesterday at the press conference. Here he is.
Hey, John. Today, Andy Reid mentioned a couple times the victory lap you guys took in KC for the first game. What exactly was the victory lap, and is that something that you think about this week as far as more material or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, you can find a smart aleck bus driver in Kansas City who made some snide comments when we got on the bus. Maybe that's why we drove around the stadiums to tick him off. This is ridiculous. Next question.
So can you won't get in trouble. What happened? Can you tell me the story?
I honestly, it's funny. After the game, we were all so fired up. Obviously winning in KC is very rare, and especially with that team, it's a big deal anytime you beat them. So on the bus, I noticed when we took off, we were like, nobody said anything like, yeah, we're taking a victory lap, blah blah blah. I just noticed we were driving around the stadium because we were just going in a big circle. So honestly, a lot of the guys, we had no idea. So we were just we were just noticing, we're like, wait, like, where are we going? And we were just going in circles. So I don't know. I honestly don't know the backstory at all. And yeah, it is what it is. People are trying to make it bigger than it is.
Yeah, the media, that's what we do. So you have 16 sacks in 25 games. You're a very, you're an emotional guy. You get after it. Can a defensive lineman be a leader? And by the way, when you're young, I mean, you're a kid still in this league. Is it okay? Like, do you like the leadership thing?
Yeah, absolutely. A D lineman definitely can be a leader. We're in the trenches. We're going toe to toe with the biggest guys and strongest dudes on the field at all times. So, being a young guy, I feel like that was something I struggled with a little bit last year. As far as a leadership standpoint, but this year, me and Cleveland and the rest of the guys, our defense is a bunch of young guys trying to, generate, pressure and generate a new type of football that, is just hard nosed and gritty and play to the end of the whistle. And that's something I'm trying to do, be a part of that and help the guys any way I can.
Boy, your speed is incredible. You just don't play like most defensive linemen. You're fast. Has there been, obviously, it's funny, you play at Eastern Michigan. That's nothing against the league you were in, but the offensive linemen aren't quite as good as the AFC West. Who has been the best offensive lineman you faced?
Ooh, that's tough. In the last 2 years, I feel like David Bakhtiari is definitely up there. We played him in Green Bay last year. I think Taylor Lewan, Larry B. Tunsil. There's a bunch of guys I can name, but yeah, no, you're not wrong when you say that. There's every week, that's the biggest difference. Coming from the NFL to college, it's like college, who you're playing this week, like, oh, it's about to be one of those weeks. But in the NFL, everybody's good, and there's guys that are athletic, that are 320 pounds and 6'7". Like, you just don't see that in the MAC. So, the talent is incredible in this league. So it's always awesome, to get up for a challenge like that.
Were you worried a little bit when you came from a smaller school? Take me to your first practice, because you're Eastern Michigan. You go to the NFL first practice. Was there a moment, Max, when you're like, okay, I can play in this league? I know I can play in this league.
Yeah, 100%. Coming from the MAC, we always played like a Kentucky or like an Illinois or Purdue during the season. So I always had big games against the Power 5 team. So I was confident, I wasn't worried. But when I first came to training camp, I saw Trent Brown lined up at right tackle, and nobody wanted to go against him. And I was like, I'm going to take it on, as a challenge, to try to beat him. If I could beat him one time, I know I can win in this league. So I was going against him every single day. And this dude is 6'8", 6'9", 400 pounds. He's a different animal that I've ever gone against. So the first time I beat him, I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, this is easy. If I can beat Trent, I can beat anybody. So that's always been my mentality. I always think about going against Trent when I first got in the NFL. And, that gives me a ton of confidence.
Well, it's great meeting you. The Raiders are a great story. I'm old enough, and I still think I'm pretty young, but I go back to the Raiders when they had Kenny Stabler and John Madden. It's an incredible tradition. Vegas is a perfect fit. And I think the whole John Gruden thing is just. By the way, when they drafted you, did Gruden get on the phone? Hey, Max, it's Gruden. Did he get on the phone when he drafted you?
Oh yeah, 100%. The first thing he said is, "I need you to get Mahomes. We need you to get Phillip Rivers and all that." And I was like, "All right, let's go." I was like, "I got this. Let's do it." And it was hilarious. So you know how Gruden is. He always loves challenging his players, and I love it. He's one of a kind.
Easy guy to root for. Max, good luck to you and the Raiders, my friend. Thanks for coming on the show. Good luck to you, your girlfriend, your 3 dogs, which you locked up for 5 minutes so we could hear you on the air. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, Maxx Crosby, Raiders defensive. That is so good. Hey, Max, I need you to get after Phillip Rivers. Patrick Mahomes, Max, you got to get after it.
You just listened to the best of the herd with Colin Cowherd. Please tune in tomorrow for more of Colin Cowherd right here.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes. so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold. Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is Stuff You Should Know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books